Chapter 724. Bang, bang, bang. Amid the crisp sounds, cracks began to appear on the web of clouds formed by the divine inscriptions. Following that, the cracks gradually enlarged and, amidst the exclamations of the onlookers, shattered. Boom! In an instant, the illusory fragments of the divine inscriptions splattered in all directions. The frozen body within the fragments was sent flying. Boom! 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 Almost at the same time that the body was sent flying, a violent force filled with a heart-palpitating sense of oppression suddenly enveloped everyone in this space like a huge mountain. Bang! 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 In an instant, all the cultivators in the endless sky-sea region felt their legs go weak as they knelt in the air. This made them extremely terrified. Damn it! Who is it? Who dares to ruin my plans? Boom! Boom! As the thunderous voice fell, the divine inscriptions appeared between heaven and earth and sealed the entire space. Sensing this, Lin Yi stopped hiding. With a slight thought, the power of his divine consciousness immediately dispersed his disguise, and he appeared in the middle of the 6 altars. Damn it! Someone is indeed sabotaging. Kill! Capture this guy for me. On the 6 altars, the expressions of the people changed slightly. They stood up one after another and charged towards Lin Yi. They were responsible for the security of the entire ritual. Now that something had gone wrong, the new king would definitely vent his anger on them. If they couldn't even capture Lin Yi, only death would await them. However, how could they possibly capture Lin Yi with just their strength? Buzz, buzz, buzz. Almost as soon as they charged forward, hundreds of divine inscriptions appeared in Lin Yi's body. What? Seeing the sky full of divine inscriptions, those people were stunned. Just as they were about to retreat, the first wave of divine inscriptions landed on them. The divine markings of frost, restriction, spatial deceleration, weakness, gravity, and various other divine markings descended at the same time. In an instant, a few tens of figures stopped in midair, and their movements seemed as if they'd been slowed down by 10 times. In the next moment, curses, lightning, flames, and gales surged. The violent power was like a sharp blade that instantly tore the dozens of figures into pieces. Damn it! The thunderous voice sounded again. A black figure gradually enlarged. The power of 9 divine inscriptions appeared on the surface of his body and exploded with a powerful force. It was like a mountain that suppressed the entire space. Although I don't know how you can comprehend so many divine inscriptions and use them, but you can only integrate 9 divine inscriptions into your body. Die. As soon as the black figure's voice, the black figure transformed into a gigantic sword that shone with a sharp cold light as it slashed towards Lin Yi's head. Huh? You to think you can't beat me? The corner of his mouth curled up. Lin Yi actually held his head high and puffed out his chest as he charged towards the giant sword. Immediately after, countless dazzling divine runes bloomed on Lin Yi's chest. Bang! In the next instant, Lin Yi's body had already collided with a huge sword in front of everyone's shocked gazes. The divine patterns of petrification, armor, and hardening released astonishing power and actually managed to block the giant sword. Explode! With a light shout, the divine inscriptions on Lin Yi's body exploded. The violent power within them spread out and wreaked havoc. Bang! 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 The violent power hit the gigantic sword like a storm. In just a few breaths' time, the gigantic sword was full of cracks. Damn it! How can this be? That enormous sword shattered, turning into black mist that filled the sky. It roared out. Lightning hurricane. Raging flames. In the next moment, the black figure split into 2. Some turned into a hurricane, some into lightning, and some into flames. They attacked Lin Yi from different angles. Feeling the attacks, Lin Yi couldn't help but shake his head. Although these attacks looked powerful, they were too weak for him, who had comprehended thousands of divine inscriptions. Thinking that time was running out, Lin Yi's face turned serious. He decided not to hold back anymore. As he raised his hand, the power of his divine inscriptions emitted a silver-white light. At the same time, many imprisonment divine inscriptions appeared. Buzz, the spatial seal, suddenly sealed the space around them. Noticing this, the figure paused for a moment, and an ominous premonition suddenly emerged in his heart. After all, it was a heavenly god. It had an instinctive sense of danger. Oh no, let's get out of here first. Without the slightest hesitation, that figure turned around. Purple-black thunderbolts were mixed with a hurricane as they smashed towards the sealed space. However, would Linny give a chance? Multiple seals. Divine inscriptions seal. Space division. Space distortion divine inscriptions. A total of 63 space divine inscriptions exploded at the same time. The figure, which was mixed with the power of lightning and hurricane, hit the space barrier. It felt as if it had hit steel. It only felt a sharp pain in its head and was about to faint. How is this possible? How can he use the power of so many divine inscriptions at the same time? Sensing this, the figure completely fainted. It looked at Lin Yi in a daze. In the next moment, the power of his divine inscriptions turned into a crescent moon and swept out. Poof! There was almost no resistance. The figure was cut into several pieces by the crescent moon. 3,000 heavenly ways, divine inscription. He put his palms together. In the next moment, the power of his divine inscriptions released a silvery white light. The holy aura was extremely dazzling. Ah! A shrill scream rang out, and the figure suddenly stiffened on the spot. Streams of black smoke continuously rushed out of his body. Demons were demons, after all. Under the power of the holy aura, it was like snow under the scorching sun. It quickly dissipated. After a while, the black smoke completely dissipated. Only a figure was left, and it fell from the sky. Hiss, how is this possible? The new king is a top heavenly god. He has comprehended 9 divine inscriptions. How could he be defeated? To think that a peak heavenly god realm expert would be defeated so quickly. Could it be that the world is going to change again? Seeing this scene, the crowd was completely stunned. However, before the crowd could react, Lin Yi had quickly picked up the figure and flew to Su Fuwu and Tian Shuang's side. He quickly left with them. In an instant, the entire Tianlansi region was in an uproar. After running for an hour, Lin Yi finally found a place where there was no one. He put Su Fuwu and Tian Shuang down. There was also the corpse. After the black smoke disappeared, the figure inside was revealed. There were no signs of life. It was like a corpse that had been dead for many years. Damn, this bastard. He bullied me for so long. I finally got my chance. Tian Shuang grinned, kicked the corpse, and flipped it over. How could it be him? There was a sudden exclamation. End of chapter. Chapter 725. How could it be him? Tian Shuang exclaimed when she saw the corpse. Her face was filled with shock. Do you know this person? Lin Yi raised his eyebrows slightly, and his heart sank. He was a genius who appeared out of nowhere 50 years ago. However, he suddenly disappeared 30 years ago. No one has heard anything about him since then. I didn't expect him to be. Tian Shuang frowned and said softly, That's strange. However, I remember that he didn't comprehend these divine runes back then. He focused on cultivating his divine soul, which strengthened his physique. His combat style is also different from now. Phew, his mind was invaded by demons. Naturally, he would fight like the demons. Lin Yi said in a low voice, Forget it. Let's not talk about this. Now that the heavenly fate has not been taken away, can you open the passage to the 9 heavens? Of course. Tian Shuang grinned and said, However, we have to return to the Cold Frost sect first. Moreover, the Cold Frost sect has been occupied. If I go back alone, I'm afraid I won't be able to kill my way in. Don't worry. I will definitely do what I promised you. Lin Yi nodded slightly, but his heart was filled with disdain. That's great. As long as we return to the sect, I can open the teleportation formation. Tian Shuang was overjoyed. To her, being able to take back the sect was the best outcome. As for the rest, she would think about it later. After asking about the location of the cold frost sect, Lin Yi was about to bring them back when his body shone with a light. Sir Yu, Su Fuwu, and Tian Shuang were sent flying by the light. They looked at Lin Yi in confusion. Lin Yi frowned slightly. He sensed that something was wrong. He looked down and saw that his body had started to turn illusory. Thousands of divine runes appeared and gradually separated from his divine consciousness. Am I about to leave? The corner of Lin Ye's mouth twitched. He was puzzled. What was going on? How long had it been? And the trip to Sky Market was about to end. No, even if I go back, I have to keep the power of these divine runes. Gritting his teeth, Lin Yi extended his index finger and drew a divine rune in the air. It looked like an eye. Buzz. As soon as the devouring divine mark appeared, a powerful suction force erupted and pulled the divine mark back into Lin Ye's body. In an instant, Lin Ye's body solidified again. The corners of Lin Ye's mouth twitched when he realized this. It was obvious that he couldn't bring these divine inscriptions back. Otherwise, the divine sense condensed into his body would not dissipate, let alone return to the divine land. This won't do. Even if I can't bring the divine runes back with me, I have to imprint them all into my mind. It's best if you can leave one behind. Having made up his mind, Lin Yun channeled his spiritual sense into the depths of his sea of consciousness. At the same time, Lin Yi said to Su Fuwu, I have to leave for a while. During this time, you and Tian Shuang go find Cheng Shifei. Let him protect you. With him around, no one in the Jiuzhou can hurt you. Tell him that I'll return after I've ascertained the origin of this continent. If he doesn't believe me, you can show him this divine imprint. Ah, my lord, you are leaving now? Hearing this, Su Fuwu couldn't help but feel depressed. Without Lin Yi, he would have to fight alone again. That's right. Do you remember what I said just now? Lin Ye's voice became more and more illusory. At the same time, a complicated divine mark quietly appeared in front of Su Fuwu. My lord, I will definitely do what you said. Su Fuwu heavily nodded his head as he stared intently at the divine inscriptions. Very good. Tian Shuang, don't go back. Without me and Cheng Shifei, you won't be a match for those demons. Remember, before I return, all of you must listen to Cheng Shifei's words. As for going above the 9 heavens, don't bother thinking about it. First, clean up the demons in the Jiuzhou. Su Fuwu, you don't have to worry about your own people. The next time I return, I will bring your people with me. At this point, his voice gradually faded. The divine mark in the air also became more and more illusory. My lord, Su Fuwu's eyes turned red. For some reason, when he heard Lin Yi instructing him on what to do next, he had the urge to cry. He had a feeling that the road ahead wouldn't be easy. Buzz! The divine mark suddenly emitted a bright light. When the light dimmed, the sky was already empty. Dust floated up from where Lin Yi had been standing. Other than that, there was nothing else. Why did he leave? Looking at the empty space in front of him, Tian Shuang was stunned. What's going on? He was just about to subdue the cold frost sect and become the ruler of the Hylon continent. How did Lin Yi disappear? My lord should have returned to his world. Su Fuwu had already guessed that Lin Yi had come from another region. He wasn't too surprised. He glanced at Tian Shuang and said, Let's go. Let's go find Cheng Shifei. He is familiar with my lord. He will definitely help us. But with a sigh, Tian Shuang looked up into the distance. His eyes were filled with despair. Lin Yi looked so powerful, but he could leave just like that. Who knew if something would happen to Cheng Shifei? At this thought, Tian Shuang gritted his teeth and said in a low voice, Since you trust him so much, then go. I can't run away anymore. Now that the new king is dead, his faction will definitely panic. I have to take this opportunity to develop the cold frost sect again. If I want to seize the heavenly fate, I have to prepare for at least a year. As long as the heavenly fate is still there, I'm not afraid. I don't believe that Tian Shuang, a man at the peak of the true god realm, can't develop a faction. Su Fuwu frowned and said in a low voice, But you have to understand that your opponents this time are not ordinary people. They are demons. Demons? Tian Shuang shook his head and said, I didn't see any demons. All of this is just an excuse made up by the few of them. All right, people who walk different paths cannot work together. Let's part ways here. With that, Tian Shuang took a deep look at Su Fuwu and turned to leave. If Su Fuwu had been stronger, Tian Shuang might have tried to rope him in. However, Su Fuwu was only at the true God realm. He would only be a burden to her. Hence, Tian Shuang chose to leave alone. Looking at Tian Shuang's back, Su Fuwu couldn't help but smile disdainfully. Although he hadn't known Lin Yi for long, he could tell that Lin Yi never lied. Moreover, he had seen the existence of the demons with his own eyes. Phew! Since you want to die so badly, I won't stop you. Now, I have to find Cheng Shifei as soon as possible and complete the task that my lord has instructed me to do. Narrowing his eyes, Su Fuwu concealed himself and quickly left the sea billow state. End of Chapter 1. Chapter 726. Buzz, buzz, buzz. The power of his divine sense surged like a raging wave, gathering at this place. When Lin Yi opened his eyes, he was already in a silver-white radiance. Looking down, he was sitting on a lotus flower. Back already? Sky Market World, so exciting. Ha ha ha, I actually made it into the top 50 of the list. My spiritual force actually increased by 1 level. I wonder when this Sky Market will open again? Surprise cheers rang out continuously. When Lin Yi heard these words, his expression immediately became solemn. Sure enough, the Sky Market World that the others went to was different from his. It was very likely that it was the so-called above the 9 heavens. Of course, the specific situation had to be matched with Qingyue. However, although the place that Lin Yi went to was different from the others, his spiritual force had also increased. His spiritual force had silently broken through from level 59 to level 60. This way, even if Lin Yi did not use heavenly tribulation, he could still compete with ordinary great sage experts. Once Lin Yi's martial Dao realm could still make a breakthrough, at that time, even a peak great sage might not be Lin Yi's match. Ha ha! Just as everyone was sighing about their gains, a loud laugh rang out. As the silver-white radiance dissipated, Flawless White's figure was reflected in everyone's eyes. Elder Bai, everyone bowed one after another, except for Yin, who was still comprehending his own improvement. How does everyone feel? Nodding slightly, Flawless White asked softly, how was the experience in the Sky Market World? Very good. In an instant, everyone spoke one after another. One had to admit that the trip to the Sky Market World had greatly improved everyone. Almost everyone's spiritual force had increased by more than 1 or 2 levels. Qingyue's improvement was even greater, directly breaking through from level 57 to level 60. Her entire charm had undergone a change, becoming more restrained. Flawless White revealed a smile, very satisfied in his heart. A moment later, Flawless White completely stabilized the formation. The white lotus dissipated, and Lin Yi and the others were put down. Without any hesitation, Flawless White led everyone away. When he went out, the 2 old men did not appear. After going out, Flawless White gave a few more instructions and let everyone leave, leaving only Qingyu and Lin Yi behind. You guys have improved quite a bit during this period of time. Flawless White chuckled. I'll send you to see Theta Scarabii later. Wait a minute. Lin Yi suddenly called out to Flawless White. He looked at the 2 of them and suddenly said, Elder, I think I might have discovered something. What is it? Hearing that, Flawless White could not help but be slightly stunned. Qingyu's brows furrowed slightly, revealing a surprised expression. Qingyu rolled her eyes and said softly, I didn't see you on this trip to Sky Market. It seems that something special has happened to you. What? You guys are not in the same place. Hearing Qingyu's words, Flawless White's expression changed slightly. He immediately waved his right hand, and spiritual energy surged like the sea, enveloping the 3 of them. That's right, Lin Yi said in a deep voice. The place I was sent to was not Sky Market, but a complete world. Not only does it have millions of years of history, but it also has a complete cultivation system. There are even different regions. Immediately, Lin Yi revealed everything he knew about Jiuzhou, including the Forgotten Land and the existence above the Ninth Heaven. TSK. Forgotten Land, Jiuzhou, above the Ninth Heaven, a complete power system. Gulp, this is definitely not Sky Market. Even Flawless White, who is extremely powerful, became nervous when he suddenly heard that there was another world. Above the Ninth Heaven, Qing Yu hesitated for a moment and suddenly said, "When I was training in Sky Market, some people who participated in the training with me did say that there was above the Ninth Heaven. However, they called themselves the Heavenly Region, saying that it was the name given to them by the people from the lower world. The Sky Market is also one of their training methods. Originally, I thought that above the Ninth Heaven was a branch of some big region. I didn't expect, indeed." Hearing Qing Yu's words, Lin Yi instantly confirmed his guess. The so-called Sky Market was a special mystery land in Jiuzhou, where people could participate in the training. Someone knew about the passage between the Divine Land and Jiuzhou, but he did not have the ability to open it. Therefore, he set up such a trap and asked the four top forces to open the passage for him. Therefore, Sky Market became his target. Anyway, in Sky Market, everyone could go in for the training. The heavenly region was as vast as the sea. No one knew how many regions and forces there were. Even if people from two different worlds met, they would not find any problems. Phew, this won't do. Lin Yi, you have to come with me to find the supremacy. You must let the Lord make the decision. After pondering for a while, Flawless White waved his hand and dispersed the protective shield. He did not care about Qing Yu at all. Carrying Lin Yi in his hand, he leaped up and flew towards the inner courtyard, leaving behind a confused Qing Yu. What's going on? Even if you want to leave, shouldn't you bring me along? After the time it takes to brew a cup of tea, Lin Yi had already appeared in the palace. Beside him, Flawless White was extremely nervous and exhaled a breath of cold air from time to time. Not long after, a few figures walked into the hall and sat on the table. The table was very long, and there were more than 10 seats scattered on both sides. At the front of the table, there was a divine light that shrouded the inside. After a while, a total of 20 people walked in from both sides of the hall and sat on both sides of the table. As for Theta Scarabii, who Lin Yi had seen previously, he was sitting at the end. 18th Elder. Could these people be the elders with real power in the inner courtyard? After sizing them up for a while, Lin Yi could not help but feel a chill in his heart. Although these elders looked no different from ordinary people, each of them was more powerful than the other. Even with Elder Theta Scarabii's terrifying power, he could only sit at the end. From this, it could be seen how powerful the other people were. After everyone was seated, a figure quietly appeared in the divine light. "Everyone is here. Flawless White, what's the matter?" A weak voice was heard, but Lin Yi and Flawless White's hearts skipped a beat. "My lord, Sky Market might be a conspiracy." After taking a deep breath, Flawless White said in a deep voice, "Lin Yi discovered a big secret during his trip to Sky Market." As his voice fell, many elders cried out in surprise and bewilderment as they looked at Bai Wuxia and Lin Yi in confusion. "What secret?" The voice continued to ask. "Sky Market is not a world that we have built. It is a world that has always existed." "What? How is that possible?" "I was also involved in the construction of Sky Market. I can clearly see the formation and changes of a world. How can it not be a world that we have built?" "Flawless White, you have to be responsible for your words." After he finished speaking, everyone was shocked. The 20 elders were shocked and looked at Lin Yi and Flawless White in bewilderment. End of chapter. Chapter 7:27. "My lord, elders, how could I possibly joke about this matter?" Flawless White said in a deep voice, "Let Lin Yi explain this." Flawless White patted Lin Yi's shoulder and gestured for Lin Yi to repeat his experience. Lin Yi also knew that with his current strength, there were still many things that he could not understand. He immediately told them all about his experience, including his guesses. At the beginning, many of the elders were a little disapproving. However, As Lin Yi continued speaking, their expressions became uglier and uglier. This, a complete cultivation system and a history. It's definitely a complete world. The world that we've built should still be in its pioneering stage. It's impossible to have such a complete cultivation system. That's right. Our idea is to let the disciples comprehend the origin of heaven and earth in the newly born world and strengthen their divine sense. But after Lin Yi finished speaking, the elders' faces turned pale. They could not believe that they had not built a new world. Instead, they had found another world. By the way, Lin Yi, you said that the strength of that world is not as high as ours. Is that true? An elder's eyes shone with a strange light. That's right. Lin Yi nodded and said, the great sage realm is the true god of that world. The heavenly sage realm is the heaven god. However, in that world, the heaven god realm is the peak. A mere heavenly sage realm is the peak. Hearing those words, it was not only that elder. The other elders also revealed strange expressions. Enough. The great lord's figure suddenly stood up from the divine light and said in a deep voice, we've found a new world. Our goal is not to occupy it. What are you trying to do? Ahem. Hearing that, the elders could not help but cough a few times. Their faces were full of embarrassment. My great lord, elders, what I'm about to say is far more serious than that. Lin Yi said in a deep voice, that world is not only connected to the divine land continent, but also to other worlds. I know a person who came from a place called the Lingwu continent. The cultivation system there is different. Moreover, demons are occupying that world. In the 9 states, the demons are attacking. Before I left, I eliminated the demons in one state. However, I haven't had the time to do anything to the rest of the states. Fortunately, I know a friend who also has a deep aversion to the devil race and is currently investigating those devils. Demons, hearing this, many of the elders' faces turned gloomy. Although the demons had not appeared in the divine land continent for a long time, almost everyone was afraid of demons. Demons. In some small areas, devilish beings that had been suppressed in the past would occasionally attack the seal and cause some trouble. Although the 4 regions were high and mighty, many times when the devil race riots in small regions were out of control, they were the ones who took action and suppressed the devil race again. If Lin Yi had not entered the divine demon taboo state in the Great Xiao world, experts would have taken action to suppress the demons again. However, the force protecting the Great Xiao world was not Cebu Gakuin. Therefore, these elders did not know about Lin Ye's deeds. I didn't expect that even the demons would be involved. The Great Lord said in a deep voice, that world is connected to many other worlds. We must not let the demons occupy it. Otherwise, they can attack or retreat, and we will be in a very disadvantageous situation. Then what should we do? Kill our way over? The elders said in a deep voice. According to Lin Yi, the others can only enter the trial area of Sky Market through the teleportation formation. They can't go out. He was sent to the Forgotten Land because of special circumstances. We can find out what's going on. Oh yes, what's so special about you that you could be sent to the Forgotten Land? At this point, the elders' eyes lit up as they looked at Lin Yi in confusion. The others were all sent to Sky Market normally. Only Lin Yi's teleportation had a problem, which surprised them. Of course, they wanted to know the specific reason. Otherwise, they would not be able to go over even if they wanted to. Lin Yi was also hesitant. If they were to talk about what was special about him, then he had too many special aspects. Whether it was the 9-level space, Biluo, or the chaotic sacred tree, they were all unusual. However, how could he say these things out loud? Could it be an auspicious sign? Flawless White suddenly said, Lin Yi has an auspicious sign on him. I think the auspicious sign might have sent something wrong and sent Lin Yi out of Sky Market. Anyway, even if it is the Sky Market, it belongs to that world. It is not difficult to teleport there. Auspicious sign? The auspicious sign is actually on this kid. As Flawless White finished his words, the elders looked at Lin Yi with burning eyes. Although they had never seen an auspicious sign before, they knew about its existence. Since the auspicious sign is there, there shouldn't be any big problems. It seems that if there are any problems in the future, I'll need you to go to that world again. All of a sudden, the elder's tone towards Lin Yi became much more relaxed. That's enough. The Great Lord's voice was heard again. Don't talk about Sky Market anymore, and don't spread it. Elder Bai, Lin Yi, the two of you can leave first. If there are any problems in the future, I'll call for you. Yes, Great Lord. Hearing this, Flawless White and Lin Yi looked at each other and left quietly. They had done what they were supposed to do. Next, it was up to the Great Lord to decide. They could do nothing and pretend that this had never happened. In the future, they could not activate the teleportation array to Sky Market or destroy it directly. Perhaps that world would also cut off its connection with the Divine Land. They could also find a way to go to the 9 states, kill all the demons, and occupy the 9 states. Only by having such an important place in their hands could they ensure the safety of the Divine Land. However, these were all for the Great Lord to consider. With Lin Ye's current strength, he did not have to worry about these things. This time, you've made a great contribution. After leaving, Flawless White looked at Lin Yi and could not help but laugh. You're indeed the one who received the auspicious sign. Your experience is indeed legendary. You've only joined the Academy for a short time, and so many things have happened. I didn't expect so many things to happen. Lin Yi shrugged his shoulders and sighed. If possible, I'd rather live peacefully for a while. Go back first. Now that this has happened, the matter of the 5 Spirits God relics might be pushed back. The Great Lord and the rest will be looking for you at any time. Flawless White murmured. The other world, I hope we can get through it safely. The demons are not easy to deal with. Genius memorized this site's address in a second. Human mobile version reading website. Chapter 728. In the outer court, Lin Yi was strolling alone, but his consciousness was in his sea of consciousness. In a 9-fold space, Biluo was hugging a cute pet as she sat on the chaotic divine tree, swinging her fair and slender legs. Biluo, you're finally here. Seeing that Biluo and Xiang Rui were both here, Lin Yi heaved a sigh of relief. Previously in that world, Biluo and Xiang Rui were not there. If not for the fact that Lin Yi was sure that his divine consciousness could not fall into an illusion, he would have doubted his life. Previously, we were forcefully separated. Biluo frowned slightly and said in a low voice, I keep feeling uneasy. That so-called Sky Market world is definitely dangerous. Indeed, Lin Yi nodded slightly. What kind of joke was this? Even demons had appeared. How could it be safe? By the way, where did you go earlier? Lin Yi asked curiously. Have you been in a 9-fold space all this time? Not really. Biluo shook her head and said, we were teleported to a place called the Sky Domain. There was a trial mystic realm called the Sky Market. Speaking of this, the cute pet in Biluo's arms suddenly woke up. It stretched out its 2 paws, and a pair of wings suddenly stretched out from its back. Oh, whoa. In the next moment, the cute pet's cry made the corner of Lin Ye's mouth twitch. What's going on with this strange cat? Lin Yi looked at the strange cat in surprise and asked doubtfully, wasn't it meowing just now? Why did it become a woof? Biluo stroked the strange cat's head and said helplessly, in the Sky Domain, it swallowed some demonic beasts and began to howl. It can swallow demonic beasts? Lin Yi was stunned. He suddenly reacted and asked doubtfully, no, in that world, we were all divine consciousness bodies. How could it swallow other demonic beasts? How can it be called auspicious if there's nothing special about it? Biluo glanced at Lin Yi. At the same time, the strange cat grinned at Lin Yi and purred. It seemed to be mocking Lin Yi. Taking a deep breath, Lin Yi asked again, did you find anything special in the Heaven Domain? I discovered another world. Biluo lightly nodded her head as she continued in a light voice. Their cultivation system is quite interesting. It's called Divine Imprints. I've recorded them down. Maybe you could try to cultivate them as well. Lin Yi shrugged his shoulders as he replied in a low voice. In that world, I've already cultivated the Tao of Divine Inscriptions. Not only that, I've already comprehended all the divine inscriptions in my heart. He comprehended all the divine inscriptions? Raising her eyebrows, Bilyuo smiled. In the heaven domain, there are over 10,000 types of divine imprints. Can you comprehend all of them? Then, do you know what kind of divine inscriptions they are? The corner of Bilyuo's lips curled up as she drew the outline of a divine inscription with her right index finger. After returning to this world, you can still use the power of the divine inscriptions? Looking at this scene, Lin Yu was shocked beyond words as he stared at Bilyuo in shock. Why not? Bilyuo shrugged her shoulders as she smiled. No matter which world it is, whether it's divine force, spiritual chi, or any other kind of energy, they all absorb the energy of heaven and earth. As long as you comprehend the divine inscriptions, no matter where you go, you can borrow the energy of heaven and earth to form divine inscriptions. Then I'll try again when I return. Lin Yi lightly nodded his head, but his heart was pounding with excitement. If he could comprehend the divine inscriptions in the divine continent, then he would have a great advantage when facing others. Saint force, divine sense, and the power of the divine inscriptions. With these three powers combined, even if others were of a higher cultivation level than him, they would not be a match for him. Moreover, although the cultivation level of the cultivators in the world of the 9 states was low, the cultivation system was extremely mysterious. Especially when the various combinations of the divine inscriptions were combined, the power that could be unleashed was definitely not much weaker than the divine sense. After making up his mind, Lin Yi exited the 9-layer space and quickly returned to his own courtyard. When Lin Yi returned, Qing Yu was waiting at the door. Lin Yi, you're finally back. Qing Wei threw a glance at Lin Yi and asked softly, what on earth happened? It seems like there's a great secret hidden in the sky market. That's right. Looking around, Lin Yi directly entered the courtyard with Qing Yu and sealed it. You can't go out of the area you're in? It's just a trial area? Lin Yi asked directly. That's right. Qing Yu asked curiously. What happened to you? Why were you sent to another place? Could it be that the sky market is really in another world? That's right. Lin Yi sighed. Let me ask you, did the people you met use any techniques that you've never seen before? Yes. Qing Yu pondered for a moment and replied, some of them have a type of rune hidden in their bodies. Those runes contain power, especially when many runes are combined together. The power that erupts is very hard to resist. They're not very strong. Most of them are in the Saint realm. Only a few of them are in the Great Sage realm. Oh, I remember that in the Sky Market's ranking, 70 of the top 100 are the geniuses of the 4 major regions. Only 30 of them have rune techniques. That's the divine inscriptions. It's a unique cultivation system in that world. Lin Yi said in a deep voice. Phew. Then have you tried to cultivate the divine inscriptions? Cultivate them? Hearing that, Qing Yu instantly revealed a shocked expression and looked at Lin Yi in confusion. Noticing this, Lin Yi immediately understood what Qing Yu and the rest were thinking. In their minds, saint energy and spiritual force were the orthodox methods. In addition, their opponents were too weak. Although the divine inscriptions surprised them, they wouldn't want to cultivate it. They wouldn't even try to understand it. So what if it was the divine inscriptions? They could just use their powerful spiritual force to crush it. I can't tell you too much about the sky market. Lin Yi pondered and said, the Honorable Lord and many elders are still discussing it. Before the results are out, I can't say anything. Even the Honorable Lord is alarmed? Qing Yu was stunned, and her expression turned strange. It seems that the sky market world really has a big secret. A big secret. Lin Yi shrugged and said softly, if this matter can't be resolved, I'm afraid the 5 spiritual god relics can't continue. There's still some time. You should increase your strength first. According to Theta Scarabii, those who can participate in the 5 spiritual god relics are all geniuses of the major forces. They're also intersect disciples of the 4 major forces. With our current strength, it's hard to compete with them. That's for sure. I'll try my best to stabilize my strength. It's just that it's still a little difficult to break through to the next realm. Qing Yu looked at Lin Yi with a strange expression. Do you think everyone is like you, suddenly leaping through several realms? End of chapter. Chapter 729. After talking to Qing Yu, Lin Yi returned to his courtyard and prepared to comprehend the sacred runes again. Silent Soul and Sun Wuyu didn't dare to disturb Lin Yi. They only talked about the development of the Sky Sword sect and didn't say anything else. Lin Yi returned to the secret room and calculated the improvements he had made in this trip to the Sky Market. His divine telekinesis had stabilized at level 60, and there were many new understandings of the sacred runes in his mind. In addition to the changes and improvements of Biluo and Xiang Rue, Lin Yi had a premonition that after he digested all of this, his overall strength would increase by no less than the previous time in the 5 Spirit God ruins. After entering the ninefold space, Biluo and Xiang Rue were surrounded by laws and sacred runes. This strange cat has also integrated the sacred runes into its body. Seeing this scene, Lin Yi was stunned. Lin Yi wasn't surprised that Biluo could comprehend the sacred runes. After all, Biluo was an overlord back then. Otherwise, she wouldn't have been able to escape from a hopeless situation and survive in a special form. However, a strange cat could actually comprehend the highest cultivation system of another world. It was really shocking. Hearing Lin Yi's voice, Biluo and the strange cat opened their eyes at the same time. They glanced at Lin Yi and said softly, "You're making a fuss over nothing." "Oh." The strange cat growled and waved its paw casually. The laws and sacred runes around it dissipated at the same time. Then, the strange cat jumped into Lin Yi's arms and rubbed against Lin Yi intimately. "Is this how you want to get close to me?" Blinking his eyes, Lin Yi didn't resist. He copied Biluo and rubbed the strange cat's body. The ninefold space is a special space. The spiritual energy in it doesn't belong to any world. Try and see if you can comprehend the sacred runes in the ninefold space. Biluo said in a deep voice, "If you can comprehend it, it will be heaven-defying." "All right, I'll try." Nodding slightly, Lin Yi recalled the divine rune in his mind. With one hand holding the strange cat, he drew the divine rune with the other. Buzz! A special power surged and formed a divine inscription. However, the divine inscription only flashed for a moment before it shattered. Frowning, Lin Yi tried a few more times, but he was only barely able to draw out the pattern. The power contained within couldn't be fused at all, and it even broke apart in the blink of an eye. After a moment of silence, Lin Yi changed to a few augmentation-type divine inscriptions. However, the augmentation-type divine inscriptions only lasted for a few more breaths of time before they shattered again. No. After trying a dozen times, Lin Yi shook his head and sighed. It seemed like the divine inscriptions could no longer exist outside of the world of the 9 prefectures. As for you, is it because you are a spiritual body that you can fuse the divine inscriptions into your body? Lin Yi suddenly recalled that in the world of the 9 states, his body was formed by the power of divine consciousness. He could comprehend countless divine inscriptions. Although Biluo wasn't formed by the power of divine consciousness, she was the same as Cheng Shifei. They were both spiritual bodies. Perhaps it was because of this that they could surpass the restrictions of the world. That's not right. Biluo frowned slightly, but said in a deep voice, "Try again. You can even break through the restrictions of this world. You might be able to break through the cultivation systems of other worlds." Lin Yi couldn't help but smile bitterly. To be honest, he didn't even know how he could fuse multiple divine consciousness cultivation techniques together. Try the origin source, heavenly water. Biluo raised her right hand, and a few drops of origin source, heavenly water splashed out and landed in Lin Yi's body. In the next moment, a strange power rippled in Lin Yi's body. With the help of that power, Lin Yi drew the divine inscriptions again. Buzz! The divine inscriptions shone brightly. However, before they were completed, they burst open. Not yet. Lin Yi shook his head and said, "It's difficult to even draw the outline now. How did I fuse it into my body back then?" Frowning slightly, Biluo pondered over the process of her cultivating the divine inscriptions when she first came out. Meow. Suddenly, the strange cat stuck out its tongue and licked Lin Ye's hand. Stop fooling around. Lin Ye patted the strange cat's head. He glanced at it from the corner of his eye and was stunned. He saw that there was a special rune on Lin Ye's hand where the strange cat had licked. This seems to be the pseudo-divine inscriptions. The bone inscriptions have completely fused into one's body. Seeing the rune, Lin Yi felt as if a bolt of lightning had struck his heart. He instantly understood. I understand now. To comprehend the divine inscriptions, one must first comprehend the bone inscriptions and the pseudo-divine inscriptions. Previously, I didn't even comprehend the bone inscriptions. Naturally, I couldn't draw the divine inscriptions. But why was this strange cat able to inscribe the pseudo-divine inscriptions into my body? Thinking of this, Lin Yi looked at the strange cat's eyes and was instantly astonished. Even if the strange cat was an auspicious sign, it was the auspicious sign of the divine continent. How could it inscribe the cultivation system of another world on his body? Could it be that the auspicious sign was the auspicious sign of several worlds at the same time? Lin Yi felt very astonished and couldn't help but turn his head to look at Biluo. Don't look at me. I don't know either. Biluo shrugged her shoulders and said helplessly, in the heaven domain, it's doing much better than me. At the very beginning, when I hadn't comprehended the power of the divine inscriptions, I relied on it to survive. It was just born not long ago, right? So terrifying? Hearing this, Lin Yi couldn't help but be surprised. If it's not terrifying, how could it be an auspicious sign? Biluo said softly, now, let's see if you can draw the divine inscriptions. Okay. Nodding slightly, Lin Ye's right index finger drew the outline in the air. Wong. In the next moment, a special power surged, and the divine inscriptions instantly took shape, rippling with a purple light and slowly entering Lin Ye's body. In order to prevent the divine inscriptions from collapsing again, Lin Yi first fused the sealing divine inscriptions. Then, he completely fused the power of the divine inscriptions and the power of the divine inscriptions in his body and sealed them. Normally, in the other world, one would fuse the power of the divine inscriptions and the physical body together. However, Lin Yi knew that the limit of fusing the power of the divine inscriptions and the power of the divine inscriptions was harder to achieve. After all, they were two different worlds. If Lin Ye's physical body and the divine inscriptions were incompatible, wouldn't all his previous efforts be wasted? Therefore, Lin Yi chose the safer method and continued to fuse the divine inscriptions and the power of the divine inscriptions together. Success! Biluo waved her fist and said excitedly, these are the divine inscriptions I collected. Try and see how many you can comprehend and fuse. As she spoke, Biluo's thoughts flickered. Divine runes formed from soul imprints appeared and lingered around Lin Ye's body. Seeing this, Lin Yi couldn't help but feel warm in his heart. Even in the heaven region, Biluo would think so much for Lin Yi and do so much for him. He was really grateful. Taking a deep breath, Lin Yi nodded heavily. He put the auspicious sign aside and focused on comprehending the divine inscriptions that Biluo collected for him. Oh, whoa! The auspicious sign let out a strange cry and jumped into Biluo's arms, looking at Lin Yi faintly. End of chapter. Chapter 730. Lin Ye's previous guess was correct. There were only a few thousand types of sacred sigil in the 9 states, but above the 9 heavens was the heavenly domain. There were more than 30,000 types of sacred sigil. Whether it was the types or power of the sacred sigil, there was a significant increase. Even though Lin Yi had a strong foundation in sacred sigil, it still took him 10 months to understand all the sacred sigil. Just as he was about to integrate the sacred sigil into his body, Silent Soul interrupted his cultivation. Young master, Elder Bai is already waiting in the living room. Hearing Silent Soul's words, Lin Yi could not help but be surprised. It had only been a day in the real world, and Flawless White was already looking for him. Rolling his eyes, Lin Yi got up and left the room. At this moment, Flawless White was sitting in front of the table, drinking tea. Before Lin Yi could say anything, Flawless White glanced at him and said in surprise, "Strange, your saint energy and divine sense did not increase. But why do I feel that the power in your body is much stronger than before?" I comprehended the cultivation system of that world. Lin Yi hesitated for a moment, but still chose to say it. If someone could really comprehend the power of the sacred sigil, it would be a great improvement for Cebu Gakuin. What? You actually learned the cultivation system of that world? Hearing this, Flawless White was shocked. His eyes shone as he stared at Lin Yi. For a moment, Silent Soul and Sun Wuyu also looked curiously at Lin Yi and Flawless White. Lin Yi went to cultivate as soon as he came back, so they did not know the details and were very nervous. "That's right," Lin Yi said in a deep voice. "The place I went was not the trial area. I investigated the formation of their cultivation system and succeeded in cultivating it. After I came back, I tried it. Indeed, it does not repel our saint energy or divine sense, and can be cultivated together." This, Flawless White sucked in a breath of cold air and said in a deep voice, "If I had known that you could cultivate the power of divine runes, I would have let you demonstrate it yesterday. Perhaps they would have believed you more." "What? Do they still not believe me?" Frowning slightly, Lin Yi was puzzled. He had already explained everything in such detail, yet there were still people who didn't believe him. "Yes, some elders believe that you have fallen into a special training area, and that everything is just an illusion. The so-called divine runes are even more ridiculous." Flawless White sneered. "Some elders are really too old. In the face of the unknown, they would choose to ignore it. Of course, this is also related to the results of their inspection. I heard that last night, the exalted lords of the 4 regions checked the passageway together, but there were no abnormalities. The world on the other side of the passage is indeed a new life." The corner of Lin Ye's mouth twitched. He was also puzzled. The Jiuzhou world had existed for hundreds of thousands of years. How could it still be a new world? "I think that the area connected to the Sky Market is indeed newly constructed. But outside the Sky Market, it depends on that world." Flawless White sighed and said, "Unfortunately, we don't have any auspicious signs. We can only go to the Sky Market through the teleportation portal, and we can't verify what you said. I think this matter will be put on hold. The Exalted Lord told me yesterday, but he had no clue. In addition, the elders spoke up, so he had no choice but to ask you and me to keep an eye on it." "You want me to keep an eye on it?" Pointing at himself, Lin Yi could not help but laugh bitterly. "Are you kidding me? If I act rashly in this realm, I'm afraid I won't be able to come back alive. If there were really people in this world who colluded with the demons, they must be top experts. If Lin Yi rashly went up, even if he entered the divine devil taboo state, it would be difficult for him to escape." "Cough, cough. I just want you to cooperate with me." Flawless White chuckled softly. "But now that you've comprehended the cultivation method of that world, I think the Exalted Lord will be able to confirm it. By the way, can you show me the so-called divine rune?" As he spoke, Bai Wuxiao looked at Lin Yi, his face full of hope. No matter how strong Flawless White was, he was still curious about the unknown. Plus, if Lin Yi could successfully cultivate it and increase his strength, perhaps he could use the so-called divine rune to increase his strength again. Flawless White's strength had reached a bottleneck. There was no other way to increase it other than to break through. However, Flawless White did not want to become an absolute saint so early, so he had been suppressing his cultivation level and strength. If he could increase his strength without increasing his cultivation level, he would naturally be very happy. Lin Yi did not know what Flawless White was thinking. He still raised his hands, and a divine rune flashed and appeared. Flames burned fiercely, giving off scorching heat, baking the air. "This is a divine rune?" Bai Wuxiao glanced at the divine rune with a surprised look on his face. He could feel that Lin Ye's saint power and divine sense power did not circulate. Only when the divine rune appeared did the flames appear. "Elemental divine rune?" Squinting, Flawless White said in a low voice, "Show me all the divine runes. I want to see how much power they contain." "Okay." Nodding slightly, Lin Yi thought. Many divine runes appeared, and various elemental powers surrounded Flawless White. In the next moment, the divine rune flashed. Flawless White felt his body sink, and the space around him was locked. This is a confinement divine rune. It can confine people, space, and time. Next is a cursed divine rune. Then, Flawless White's body trembled. He felt a strange power rush into his body, weakening his physique and strength. This shocked him. Although he was an invincible heavenly saint, his strength was not inferior to an ordinary absolute saint. Lin Yi's cultivation level was very different from his, but he could still weaken his strength. This showed the power of the divine rune. Flawless White was suddenly interested in the divine rune. After that, Lin Yi showed the other types of divine runes. Some of the amplification divine runes could not be concealed, so Lin Yi explained them. The more he looked, the more Flawless White was interested in the divine runes. He suddenly asked, Lin Yi, are you willing to write down the cultivation method you have learned and give it to the Academy? Let the Academy promote it. Of course, if you agree, I will find the Honorable Lord and give you a reward. Elder Bai, I have already told you. Do you think I will keep it to myself? Lin Yi shrugged and said calmly, as long as it can help the Academy, I am willing to share it. However, this is a cultivation system from another world. Ordinary people may not be able to cultivate it. It requires a lot of talent. End of chapter. Chapter 731. That's true, but as long as someone can successfully comprehend it, it's great. Flawless White said in a deep voice, even if only 1 out of 100 people can comprehend it, then out of 10,000 people, there will be 100 people who can successfully comprehend it. Their strength will increase, and they might be able to explode with great power in the future. Good. With a grin, Lin Yi asked, when will I give it to you? How long will it take to summarize it? Flawless White said in a deep voice, the Lord asked me to bring you to see him. If time allows, you can summarize the cultivation system. This way, the Lord will trust you more. If it takes too long, then forget it. Anyway, you have already comprehended the sacred runes, so he will be convinced. I've already engraved all the sacred runes and the cultivation system in the depths of my soul. Lin Yi shrugged. I think, with your strength, you should be able to copy it, right? Oh, you have already engraved it in your soul? Hearing this, Flawless White looked deeply at Lin Yi. In just half a month, Lin Yi was able to memorize the entire cultivation system on his first contact with the sacred runes, and even successfully cultivate it. This kind of talent was really shocking. If that's the case, then come with me to see the Lord. Slightly nodding, Flawless White led the way out of the room. Lin Yi said a few words to Silent Soul, and then followed him out. In the inner courtyard, Lin Yi was led by Flawless White to a big tree. The big tree was quite strong, flashing with light and rippling with life energy. Flawless White bowed to the big tree. An array of light suddenly flashed, enveloping Lin Yi and Flawless White. Lin Yi only felt his body shake, and when he opened his eyes again, he was already in a gentle light. Looking up, he saw a middle-aged man lying on a chair with his eyes closed, sitting leisurely. Hi, Lord. Flawless White saluted the middle-aged man. Lin Yi also cupped his fists and saluted. However, he was quite surprised. He did not expect the Lord of Cebu Gakuen to be so young. No need to be so courteous. The great Lord raised his hand slightly and glanced at Lin Yi. He asked indifferently, Are you sure that you were sent to that world with the help of the auspicious signs? I think so. The corner of Lin Yi's mouth twitched, but he was puzzled. There were too many strange things on him. Who knew what the reason was? After some time, I will slowly cut off the teleportation between Cebu Gakuen and the other 3 parties. After improving the teleportation formation, I will allow you to teleport again. If you can still teleport to that world, there are some things that I might need you to do. The High Lord said in a deep voice, during this period of time, you must keep the matter of that world in your heart. Even if the other elders ask you, you must not say a word. Yes, my lord. Lin Yi nodded slightly and looked at Flawless White. Sensing Lin Ye's gaze, Flawless White took a step forward and said, "My lord, Lin Ye has comprehended the cultivation system of that world. I think that we can promote it in Cebu Gakuin." Oh, hearing this, the usually calm, High Lord's expression changed. He stared at Lin Yi and sized him up carefully. After a long while, the High Lord laughed softly and said, "What an interesting fellow. You actually comprehended the cultivation system of that world?" "That's right." Lin Yi nodded and raised his right hand. In an instant, a complicated divine inscription appeared beside him. Although Lin Yi had yet to integrate the divine inscription into his body, he did not feel pressured at all to display it. Of course, the power contained in it was much weaker. However, even so, it was enough to move the High Lord. This power seems to be similar to divine consciousness, but it's also different. The High Lord's eyes turned, and he asked again, "What are the advantages of this cultivation system?" The different types of divine inscriptions can be combined according to the different attributes to unleash extremely strong power. Lin Yi spoke frankly and confidently, listing out the advantages of the divine inscription. Of course, there were also disadvantages. After listening, the High Lord's expression changed, especially when he learned that the divine inscription, saint energy, and divine consciousness could coexist and strengthen his body at the same time. "Phew, I agree." The High Lord stared at Lin Yi and said in a deep voice, "I'll leave this matter to the two of you for now. After you've completed the preliminary matters, you can promote it in the inner yard and see how effective it is. If there are any problems, just tell me directly. I'll inform the other elders and give you the right to decide. Also, Lin Yi, you better write down the cultivation system of that world, the principles and the cultivation methods." Of course, Lin Yi and Flawless White looked at each other in surprise. They did not expect the High Lord to give them so much power and even entrust this matter to them. "Don't worry, High Lord. Since you're willing to trust me, I'll definitely do a good job." Flawless White's expression was solemn. "Haha, of course, I trust you." The High Lord chuckled and said, "However, regarding that world, there won't be much progress in the next 2 months. Flawless White, it's better for you to stay in the inner yard. As for Lin Yi, when the Five Spirits God relic is over, don't run around. Stay in the inner yard for the time being and make plans after everything is confirmed. All right, you should go back. If there's anything, just tell the other elders and try to organize the information of that world's cultivation system." After giving his instructions, the High Lord waved his hand. Another white light flashed and sent Lin Yi and Flawless White out. Lin Yi and Flawless White looked at each other and were both excited, especially Flawless White. In the past, although his status was not low and he was in charge of the entire outer yard, he had not reached the level of a core elder. There were many things that he had to discuss with the other elders and even apply for. He did not expect the High Lord to give him such great power this time. "Lin Yi, thank you so much this time. If you need anything in the academy in the future, just tell me. I won't mistreat you." Thinking of this, Bai Wuxia could not help but laugh out loud, almost dancing with his hands and feet. Seeing this, Lin Yi became curious. Elder Bai, who was always calm, was so happy. Could it be that there was something hidden? "Elder Bai, what should we do next?" Lin Ye's eyes darted around, but he did not ask too much. Instead, he tried to sound out Bai Wuxia. "Wait a minute, let me try and see if I can cultivate it successfully." Flawless White touched his nose and said in a low voice, "If it doesn't work, you may have to put in more effort." "Okay, but..." Lin Yi hesitated for a moment and said in a low voice, "Elder Bai, can we go to the space-time cave to cultivate? If you want to cultivate the divine inscriptions, it can't be done in a day. I still have to go to the Five Spirits God relic after some time, so I may not have that much time." Of course, the High Lord has asked the other elders to cooperate with us. Let's go to the space-time cave. In a chapter. Chapter 732. In the space-time hole, Lin Yi and Flawless White sat opposite each other. Many divine runes appeared and lingered around them. It had to be said that the Great Lord acted quickly. When Lin Yi and Flawless White arrived at the space-time hole, the elder guarding the space-time hole had already received the news from the Great Lord. He did not question them and allowed them to enter. After that, Lin Yi called out the sky and emptied all the information about the bone runes, pseudo-divine runes, and other systems in his memory for Flawless White to read. Flawless White began to comprehend the bone runes according to the order. It had to be said that his talent was not weak. He quickly carved out many powers and condensed them into bone runes. After that, it was pseudo-divine runes and divine runes. Noticing this, Lin Yi could see that Flawless White did not need his help and began to integrate the divine runes into his body. Time passed slowly. In the blink of an eye, 5 months had passed. Lin Yi had already integrated more than 300 types of divine runes. Flawless White had also comprehended more than 1,000 types of divine runes and had integrated 10 of them into his body. After all, the divine mainland was different from that world. If one really broke through the limits of that world, even Flawless White could integrate 10 types of divine runes in a short time with his talent. Lin Yi was sure that if Flawless White was given time, he might be surpassed very soon. However, in this mainland, the power between heaven and earth was only spiritual qi. It was still quite difficult to comprehend the divine runes. Normally, in that mainland, as long as one had a certain level of talent, they would be able to comprehend the divine runes. However, in the divine mainland, only a very small number of people could comprehend it. After the cultivation, Flawless White clenched his fist and felt the surging saint power in his body. He smiled. Flawless White was not a divine saint. Therefore, he chose to integrate the divine runes and saint power. Not a bad cultivation system. After integrating these divine runes, my power has at least doubled. After feeling it, Flawless White smiled. Elder Bai, can you continue fusing divine runes? Lin Yi replied in a low voice. In that world, each person can only fuse a maximum of 9 types of divine imprints. I wonder if there's such a restriction in our world. Only 9? The corner of Flawless White's mouth twitched, and he smiled. I've already fused 10 types, and I don't feel like I've reached the limit. It's just that I haven't comprehended enough of the other divine inscriptions, so I don't dare to easily fuse them. In that case, Elder Bai, try your best to learn how to match and combine divine runes. Lin Yi shook his head and said, the most powerful thing about divine runes isn't that they can enhance the user's strength, but rather that they have strange abilities. The power unleashed by the combination of multiple divine runes is even stronger than saint energy. I've already given you all the cultivation insights and information. Do you still need my help? There's no need for that. I'll just do some more research. Flawless White grinned and said, you've already helped me a lot. Don't worry. Once this matter is confirmed, I'll talk to the Honorable Lord and ask for some benefits for you. There's no need to trouble the Elder. I've already received enough benefits. Lin Ye's eyes turned, and he chuckled. Instead of giving me benefits, why don't you hurry up and pull me into the inner yard? I'd like to see the standard of the inner yard disciples. By the way, Elder Bai, you said before that the inner yard disciples are all very strong. I wonder if I'm ranked high in the inner yard now. After fusing 300 types of divine runes, Lin Yi wasn't sure what level his strength had reached, and he was very curious. Flawless White pondered for a moment, and carefully sized up Lin Yi for a moment, and said in a low voice, with your aura and your methods, I reckon that an ordinary peak great sage is no longer your opponent. In the inner yard, those below the intermediate great sage won't be able to compete with you. However, you still have to be careful of those above the advanced great sage realm. Your offensive power isn't weaker than theirs, but your defensive power is still slightly lacking. With that, Lin Ye's shoulders shook, and the Annihilation Divine Dragon transformation erupted. The surging power of the sacred dragon surged and filled Lin Ye's meridians. In an instant, the corners of Flawless White's mouth twitched, and he looked helplessly at Lin Yi. "Ha!" Flawless White suddenly slapped Lin Ye's head and said with a sigh, "You little monster, I didn't expect you to have such a level of body tempering cultivation technique. Now, you don't have to worry about those below the peak great sage. If that's the case, I'm more confident about the trip to the Five Spirits God ruins." Hearing Flawless White's affirmation, Lin Yi heaved a sigh of relief. The Five Spirits God Ruins was a ruin that only the Great Sage Realm could enter. Moreover, the participants were all God's favored sons of various major forces, and there was no lack of invincible Great Sage with astonishing strength. Naturally, he would be a little worried. "You little guy, you're really a monster." Flawless White looked at Lin Yi with a strange look in his eyes. He clearly remembered that a few months ago, Lin Yi was still a lone divine perception sage. He had just joined Cebu Gakuen for less than half a year, but he already had a cultivation level comparable to the peak Great Sage. Such talent was really shocking. Even Shun Qingyun, who was previously recognized as a gifted demon girl, took several years to break through from the sage-to-be to the invincible sage realm. However, Lin Yi took even less time. Although it could be said that Lin Yi had borrowed the power of the space-time voids twice, the speed at which he had done so caused by Wuxia's heart to tremble. He vaguely understood why Chan Daoxian had taken a liking to Lin Yi, and why the High Lord had believed Lin Ye's words. "Forget it, I already know how to cultivate the sacred inscriptions. We should go out." Flawless White got up and bowed slightly toward the depths of the space-time hole. Only then did he leave the space-time hole with Lin Yi. As Flawless White was also present, Lin Yi did not use the Celestial Pagoda and Ninefold Space. 5 months in the space-time hole was only half a month outside. However, when Lin Yi went out, Theta Scarabii was already waiting outside. "Elder Theta Scarabii, greetings, Elder." Seeing Theta Scarabii, Lin Yi were both surprised, but they hurriedly bowed. Theta Scarabii was ranked 18th among the 20 elders of Cebu Gakuen. He had a high status, and even Flawless White was extremely respectful to him. With his status, he naturally received the Great Lord's reminder and knew that Lin Yi had come to the space-time hole to cultivate. "Although I don't know what the Great Lord wants the two of you to do, if there's anything you need, you can tell me." Nodding slightly, Theta Scarabii said to Flawless White, "Although we're from different factions, if it's beneficial to Cebu Gakuen, I won't refuse." "Thank you very much, Elder. There's no problem now." Flawless White cupped his fist slightly. Hearing this, Theta Scarabii did not say anything else. He could see that Flawless White still did not trust him. After pondering for a moment, Theta Scarabii looked at Lin Yi and asked in a low voice, "Little guy, do you still have time to go to the Five Spirits God Ruins?" "I'm leaving tomorrow. If I don't have time, I won't wait for you." End of chapter. Chapter 733. Of course. Before Lin Yi could reply, Flawless White smiled and said, "I'll be fine by myself during this period of time." "That's good. Bring Lin Yi and Qingwei to the inner yard tomorrow. We'll use the teleportation channel to leave." Theta Scarabii nodded slightly and reminded him before turning to leave. Looking at Theta Scarabii's departing figure, Flawless White said in a low voice, "Little guy, let me give you a piece of advice. It's best not to have close ties with any faction, including me. Especially after you arrive at the inner yard. You must remain neutral. Is the conflict between factions that serious?" Hearing this, Lin Yi frowned slightly and looked at Flawless White in confusion. Based on the people he had interacted with so far, Cebu Gakuen was rather united. He did not understand why Flawless White and the rest would have such a conflict between factions. "Sai, you definitely can't imagine how serious the conflict between factions is. Therefore, I hope you can remain neutral." Flawless White sighed and said, "If it weren't for my identity, I would also want to remain neutral. However, it's no longer possible. Fortunately, the new students these years are not bad. If possible, you should strive to unite all the students. I have a premonition that the key to changing the conflict between factions lies with this batch of new students." As Flawless White spoke, he stared at Lin Yi, which surprised Lin Yi. Shrugging his shoulders, Lin Yi said softly, "Elder, don't worry. I have a good impression of the other students." "All right, it's time for me to send you back." Flawless White sighed and said, "In this trip to the Five Spirits God Ruins, there are many great sage invincible. Dangers lurk everywhere in the ruins. You must protect yourself well. Haha, don't worry, Elder. I'll definitely get the five spirits God technique back. The corner of Lin Ye's mouth curled up. He was rather confident. I shall wait and see. Flawless White laughed softly. With a thought, he brought Lin Yi and hurried towards the outer courtyard. Not long after, Lin Yi had already returned to his residence. At this time, Silent Soul and Sun Wuyu weren't there. Lin Yi was sitting in the hall, waiting for them to return. The journey to the five spirits god relics would take at least a month or even longer. Lin Yi had to arrange everything properly. Not long after, Silent Soul and Sun Wuyu returned, their faces filled with excitement. Captain Gongzi, we met Elder by just now. He told us that we were also recruited by Cebu Gakuin. He even rewarded us with 5 million points. Without waiting for Lin Yi to ask, Silent Soul and Sun Wuyu shouted excitedly, which surprised Lin Yi. Thinking about it, Lin Yi understood that this should be a reward from Flawless White. This time, Lin Yi's contribution was not small. He had discovered a pocket dimension. Not to mention other things, just the information about the demons was worth these rewards. Even if they had no way to confirm it, the Honorable Lord and the others were already on guard. It was almost impossible for them to be cheated. In addition, the new cultivation system was comprehended by Lin Yi himself and contributed to the Academy. Naturally, the Academy would reward him. 5 million points per person, and an exception was made for admission. These rewards might not be enough to measure Lin Yi's contribution. However, Lin Yi was very satisfied. This is a good thing. Since you're already considered students, if you have time, go to the Heart Refining Abyss and Heavenly Thunder Realm. It will be good for your cultivation. Don't spend those points on the Sky Rapier Gate. Go to the Sacred Pavilion in exchange for some good treasures. Lin Yi reminded them. If you have time, go to the Pill Pavilion. If you have a mission, go to Luori City. Shui Feng and the others are in Luori City. You must keep in touch. If they lack any resources, don't be stingy with your points. Go to the Sacred Pavilion in exchange for them. After reminding them, Silent Soul and Sun Wuyu patted their chests and promised to complete the mission. Silent Soul pursed his lips and asked, Gongzi, are you going out again? That's right. Lin Yi sighed. I might not be back for a month. During this time, I'll leave the Sky Rapier Gate to you guys. Okay, Silent Soul and Sun Wuyu looked at each other and hesitated for a moment. In the end, they agreed with a sigh. Although they wanted to go out with Lin Yi, they knew that they were too weak. If they followed Lin Yi, they would only be a burden. Moreover, the development of the Sky Rapier Gate needed them. After reminding them for a while, Lin Yi went back to his room and started cultivating in the Universe Pagoda in ninefold space. He had only merged 300 types of sacred glyphs and had not reached the bottleneck. He just did not have enough time. He still had one night to cultivate. He wanted to merge more sacred glyphs before the five spirits god relic opened. Biluo knew that Lin Yi was in a hurry, so she used the origin water to speed up Lin Yi's merging. However, the Divine Land was different from the 9 states. This time, Lin Yi had only merged 999 types of sacred glyphs and reached the bottleneck. He could not merge anymore. My physical body is still too weak. I can still bear the divine telekinesis, but my physique has reached the peak. I can't strengthen it anymore. Phew, it seems that with a physical body, even if I use the divine telekinesis, there is still a limit. After understanding this, Lin Yi was curious. He did not know if the upper limit of merging with physique or divine telekinesis was higher. Since he could no longer merge the sacred glyphs, Lin Yi started cultivating his saint power. If he wanted to break through to level 60 divine telekinesis saint, he would need a great opportunity. It was difficult to make progress just by cultivating. Only martial arts could be considered Lin Yi's weak point at the moment. After 4 months, Lin Yi ended his cultivation, but there was not much improvement. As expected, after becoming an invincible saint, it will be difficult to break through. Lin Yi sighed and packed his things. After reminding Silent Soul for a while, he left the courtyard. At this time, Flawless White and Qing Yu were already waiting at the door. After looking at each other, Flawless White raised his hand and led Lin Yi and Qing Yu to the inner courtyard. After taking a look at Qing Yu, Lin Yi found that her aura had solidified and even her martial arts realm had improved. He could not help but nod. It seemed that they had improved a lot in this trip to Sky Market. Not long after, Lin Yi, Qing Yu, and Flawless White landed outside a teleportation circle. "Greetings, Elder." A greeting was heard. Lin Yi and Qing Yu looked up and saw dozens of figures standing at the side, bowing to Flawless White. Shun Qingyun, Feng Toyoi, and the others were among them. However, other than Shin Qingyun, who was standing in the first row, Toyota, Yi, and several of his underlings stood at the back. Theta Scarabii stood at the front. When she saw Flawless White and the others, she nodded slightly and gestured for Lin Yi and Qing Yu to walk over. End of chapter. Chapter 734. After Flawless White left, Lin Yi and Qing Yu also came to Theta Scarabii. For a moment, many Inner Yard disciples, except for Shun Qingyun, Feng Tianyi, and a few others, looked at Lin Yi and Qing Yu strangely. "Not bad. Your divine senses have reached level 60, and your martial realms have also improved. You have met the qualifications to participate." After sizing up Lin Yi and Qing Yu, Theta Scarabii smiled. "All right, hurry up and get into position. We'll open the transportation channel immediately." Amidst Theta Scarabii's laughter, Lin Yi and Qing Yu walked into the crowd. Many Inner Yard disciples were surprised and suspicious. They didn't understand why Lin Yi and Qing Yu could join the team of the 5 spiritual god relics when they weren't even at the Great Sage Realm. In the Inner Yard selection, many pinnacle Great Sage Realm cultivators weren't qualified. However, very quickly, when they saw Shun Qingyun greeting Lin Yi with a smile and chatting with him, they were all stunned on the spot. This guy knows the little witch? Looks like his identity is not ordinary, not simple at all. At this moment, many disciples looked at each other and didn't dare to underestimate Lin Yi anymore. Noticing this, Theta Scarabii shook her head slightly. She hadn't opened the formation yet and was still waiting. Lin Yi wasn't in a hurry. He chatted with Shun Qingyun while sizing up the surrounding disciples. This time, there were a total of more than 20 people who could explore the 5 spiritual god relics. Among them, there was a familiar face, UNMO. Lin Yi was surprised. After sensing carefully, he realized that UNMO's true realm was actually at the pinnacle Great Sage Realm. Noticing Lin Yi's gaze, UNMO nodded slightly at Lin Yi and smiled. Lin Yi smiled back, but he was shocked. UNMO's clone had been defeated by him. He originally thought that the first meeting between the two of them would be filled with tension. He didn't expect UNMO to be so friendly. However, Lin Yi didn't think too much about it and looked at the rest of the people again. It was undeniable that Cebu Gakuin had attached great importance to the 5 spirits god relic. Among the 20 or so people, except for Lin Yi, Tota Yi, and a few others, almost all of them were geniuses who cultivated both saint energy and divine sense. Moreover, the lowest level among them was the peak Great Sage, and there were 2 invincible saints. This caused Lin Yi to be extremely shocked. Last time, some of the palace masters that he had seen had yet to arrive, and there were already 2 invincible saints. Just how many experts were there in the inner court? Originally, Lin Yi didn't attach much importance to the inner court and thought that he would be able to rank amongst the top once he entered the inner court. But now, he realized that he was wrong. In the inner court, there were definitely many disciples who could defeat him. Just among the 20 or so people, there were a few who made him feel fear. A moment later, another figure walked over from afar, yawning. Everyone became curious when they noticed this. They raised their heads and looked over, only to see a young man in black clothes slowly walking over. His expression was rather indifferent. Yi-in. When they saw the young man's appearance clearly, Lin Yi and Qing Yu were both surprised. Didn't they say that apart from the few of them, the rest were only inner court disciples? Why was Yi-in also able to come? Elder, when are we leaving? Yin came in front of the crowd and ignored everyone's surprise. He only glanced at Theta Scarabii. "Kid, are you really going?" Theta Scarabii narrowed his eyes and said, "The Five Spirits God relic is full of danger. With your current strength, it's very likely that you'll be injured and die." "So what?" Yin yawned and said snappily, "All right, since everyone is here, let's go." "Yes, you only need to remember that I won't care about you this time." Slightly nodding his head, Theta Scarabii did not pay attention to Yi Yin's words. He waved his right hand, and in an instant, a screen of light had already enveloped everyone present. Lin Yi, Shun Qinyun, and the rest had yet to recover from the shock in their hearts when their vision turned black and they fainted. Before their consciousness gradually dissipated, there was a question in almost everyone's hearts. Who exactly was that young man to actually dare to speak to Theta Scarabii in such a manner? After what seemed like an eternity, yet also like an instant, light gradually appeared. Lin Yi slowly opened his eyes as a fragrant smell immediately assaulted his senses. Buzz. When he smelled the fragrance, Lin Yi immediately felt that his body was filled with incomparable energy. His head shook as he completely woke up. Raising his eyes, Lin Yi was stunned. His surroundings were filled with verdant trees and colorful flowers. It was as if he was in a paradise on earth. Theta Scarabii's sleeves fluttered in the wind as she stood not far away like an immortal. Looking around, the rest of the students woke up one by one. When they saw this scene, they were all shocked. Behind the crowd, there was a spatial crack that rippled with a strong spatial aura. However, very quickly, the spatial crack closed and only the crowd was left. Many of the students were curious. However, Theta Scarabii only had her back facing them and did not speak, nor did they dare to go forward and ask. Only Yin curled his lips and asked, "Where is this place? Are we just going to wait here?" "This is the Desolate God region. It does not belong to the four major regions." Theta Scarabii's voice rang out. "Xuanji has already arrived a month in advance. Wait for her to come and pick you up. Also, after Xuanji arrives, I will no longer care about you. Until the Five Spirit God Ruins opens, you are free to move around. However, I suggest that you move in groups. Otherwise, you may be at a disadvantage here. Those who can come here are not easy to deal with." As soon as she finished speaking, many of the students were not convinced. Which one of them was not a genius in Cebu Gakuen? They would not admit defeat if they were asked to. Lin Yi was surprised. He did not expect the Desolate God region to exist in addition to the four major regions. Buzz. A surging sage aura rippled as a figure flashed in a dazzling light and sped over from afar. As she got closer, countless jade butterflies appeared and floated in the air. Seeing the jade butterflies, many of the students smiled. "Senior Xuanji is here. Hee. With Senior Xuanji here, this trip to the Five Spirit God Ruins is in the bag." Many of the students grinned as they looked at the figure approaching from afar. Their eyes were filled with respect and admiration. Fairy Xuanji was the #1 genius in Cebu Gakuen and the #1 beauty in the academy. She was admired by many. Soon, the dazzling light dissipated and the jade butterflies turned into a cool aura that floated in the air. A beautiful figure descended and stood in front of Dao Yi. Her appearance was devastatingly beautiful. It was Fairy Xuanji. "Xuanji greets Elder." After bowing slightly, Fairy Xuanji glanced at the people behind Theta Scarabii. Her expression did not change at all. "I'll leave these little guys to you." Theta Scarabii nodded and clasped his hands together. In the next moment, his body turned into an illusion and disappeared in front of everyone. In a chapter. Chapter 735. Everyone, welcome to the Desolate God Realm. Fairy Xuanji said calmly. "Elder Theta Scarabii should have told you that you can choose to move around freely or follow me. Make your own choice. Of course we'll follow Fairy Xuanji." "Ha ha ha. Fairy Xuanji, you're one of the top 10 geniuses in the universe. I feel safer following you." Many students cheered and giggled as they approached Fairy Xuanji. Yin was the only one left. He coldly glanced at the crowd and walked into the distance. Sensing this, Lin Yi and Qing Yu couldn't help but be surprised. Why is this guy so unconventional? Lin Yi whispered with a frown. I'm not sure. He's very strange. He's alone in the sky market world and even targets his own people. Qingwei shook her head and said, but he's very strong. He's in the top 5 of the sky market list all by himself. If the time wasn't up, I'm afraid he'd be in the top 3. Forget it. Since he's alone, let's not bother about him. Lin Yi and Qingwei looked at each other and decided to stick together. After all, this was a new area and they had never been here before. It would save them a lot of trouble if someone showed them around. It's boring to stick together. Shen Qingyun stuck out her tongue and suddenly said, Lin Yi, I know the general situation here. Let's go out alone. There aren't many experts in this area. What we need to be careful of are the sect disciples from the other 4 major regions. Lin Ye's mouth twitched as he looked at Shen Qingyun. Qingwei also had a strange look on her face. Sister Xuanji is actually very strict. It's boring to be with her. Shen Qingyun stuck out her tongue and looked at Lin Yi with her big watery eyes. Junior brother Lin, let's go alone. Anyway, there's still some time before the real relic opens. The helpless Lin Yi was just about to reply when he suddenly felt a burst of cold air and his whole body trembled. Looking up, Lin Yi suddenly realized that Fairy Xuanji had already arrived in front of him and Shen Qingyun. Cough cough. Lin Yi couldn't help but feel extremely awkward. Although he wasn't the one bad-mouthing Xuanji, Shen Qingyun was talking to him, and he couldn't get away with it. The rest of the students looked surprised. Their eyes kept drifting back and forth between Lin Yi and Shen Qingyun. They could see that the relationship between Shen Qingyun and Lin Yi was very different. Shen Qingyun was the witch of the inner courtyard. She was very famous, and everyone knew her character. Now, seeing Shen Qingyun being so cute in front of Lin Yi, they were all very surprised. Sister Xuanji. Shen Qingyun stuck out her tongue and called out sweetly. I don't object to you going out alone, but you're not allowed to cause trouble. Xuanji glanced at Lin Yi, then looked at Shen Qingyun and said in a low voice, the 5 spirits god relic is very important, and people from the other 3 forces will be here. Try not to cause trouble and expose your identity. Okay, Sister Xuanji. In front of Fairy Xuanji, Shen Qingyun was like an obedient child and nodded vigorously. This scene caused Lin Yi and Qingwei to be dumbstruck. They had never seen Shen Qingyun being so obedient. Even in front of Lin Yi, she just restrained herself a little. It seems that Fairy Xuanji's status in the inner courtyard is very high. Lin Yi's evaluation of Fairy Xuanji rose again. If something really happens, call me directly. Nodding at Shen Qingyun, Xuanji did not speak to Lin Yi and Qingwei. Instead, she turned to look at the rest and asked in a low voice, is there anyone else who wants to go out alone? As soon as he finished speaking, many of the students looked at each other, and a few of them left silently. After making sure that no one left, Fairy Xuanji led the crowd away. In an instant, only Shen Qingyun, Lin Yi, and Qingwei were left. Glancing at Qing Yu, she saw that Shen Qingyun's lips were puffed up, as if she was panting with anger. Cough cough. Should I leave? Qingwei glanced at Lin Yi and laughed softly. It's okay. It's more fun with 3 people. Shen Qingyun rolled her eyes and laughed softly. This should be the first time the 2 of you are meeting Sister Xuanji, right? She's the #1 fairy of Cebu Gakuin. She's extremely powerful and resourceful. Hee, isn't she powerful? Seems like you're very close to her. Lin Yi raised his eyebrows and smiled. I've seen her power before. She's very powerful. Oh, you've actually met Sister Xuanji. Shen Qingyun pouted. Of course I'm close to her. Looking at her, it seems like she's in danger this time. But with the 3 of us, it shouldn't be a problem. The Desolate God territory doesn't belong to the 4 main territories, but in reality, the 4 main territories can crush it. The forces here are not as powerful as the 4 main territories. What we have to be careful of is the people from the other 4 main territories. By the way, do you know the other 4 forces? Lin Yi shrugged. Who doesn't know? Shen Qingyun smiled. Other than Juyo Dragon School, Holy Moon Divine Sect, and Divine Sky Sect, we don't have to be afraid of the other forces. We don't have to worry even if we have to face those 3 sections. With Sister Xuanji around, unless they call us elders, they won't dare to do anything. What's Fairy Xuanji's rank among the top 10 geniuses in the starry sky? Lin Yi chuckled. Are the people from the other forces that afraid of her? Yes, Sister Xuanji's ability is very special. Even those who are ranked higher than her don't dare to do anything rashly. Shen Xinyan smiled. I won't say exactly how powerful she is. You'll know in the future. Well, we should go to Dahuang City. It's very interesting here, especially the Beast Fighting Coliseum. Strange beasts will appear from time to time. Dahuang City, Beast Fighting Coliseum. Lin Yi smiled bitterly. My little ancestor, even if you want to go, shouldn't you introduce this place to us? Ha ha! Sticking out her tongue, Shan Xinyan introduced the desolate god territory to them while skipping towards the southwest. There were a total of 6 cities in the desolate god territory. They were neither big nor small. As for Dahuang City, it was a city close to the Divine Lands. It was said that a holy sage had fallen here and left behind his relics. Therefore, it was very popular. People often came here to try their luck, hoping to find the holy sage's relics. There were a total of 4 replicated relics of the 5 spiritual gods. After they were cleared, the original relics would appear in the desolate god territory within a month. However, no one knew where the 5 spiritual gods' relics would appear. Therefore, Fairy Xuanji had asked many times if they could split up and asked Shen Xinyan and Lin Yi to go together. The more people split up, the higher the possibility of them finding the 5 spiritual gods' relics first. They would have the upper hand. In a chapter. Chapter 736. The Great Desolation City was located in the north of the desolate god realm. When Shen Qingyun arrived with Lin Yi and Qingyu, the Great Desolation City was full of people. Countless people were entering and exiting the city. It was extremely lively. Let's go to the Beast Fighting Coliseum first. After arriving at the Great Desolation City, Shen Qingyun's eyes lit up. Like a bird that had struggled out of its cage, she dragged Lin Yi and rushed towards the Great Desolation City. Looking at the backs of Lin Yi and Shen Qingyun, Qingyu rubbed her nose and felt extremely depressed. Originally, she only wanted to be familiar with Lin Yi. In addition, Shen Qingyun's strength was not bad, so it would be much safer to be with them. However, she never expected that it would be so painful to be with the 2 of them. It was fine to be ignored all the time, but they would not think of her at all. Phew, I might as well go alone. With a sigh, Qingyu could only helplessly catch up and slowly follow behind Lin Yi and Shen Qingyun. Of course, Lin Yi was not just fooling around. Although Shen Qingyun dragged him all the way out, Lin Yi roughly analyzed the strength of the people on the street in the Great Desolation City. In the Great Desolation City, the strength was generally between the half-sage and the sage. The Great Sage was very rare. In terms of strength, it was about the same as the Sunset City. It cannot be compared with the 4 major domains. Realizing this, Lin Yi breathed a sigh of relief. He did not have to worry about Shen Qingyun's safety. The facilities in the city were similar to those in other cities. Lin Yi was led to a rather luxurious building after Shen Qingyun turned left and right. Obviously, Shen Qingyun had been here before, and she had been here many times. At the luxurious entrance, several guards saw Lin Yi and Shen Qingyun arrive. They all smiled and went forward to welcome them. His friendly attitude surprised Lin Yi. Shen Qingyun did not pay attention to the guards. She pulled Lin Yi and prepared to rush in, but was stopped by Lin Yi. "Seeing your sister, you seem to have forgotten about someone." Lin Yi stared at Shen Qingyun silently. Only then did he remember that he had been following Shen Qingyun and had almost forgotten about Qingwei. With a soft cry, Shen Qingyun turned around and saw Qingyu walking over leisurely. Only then did she let out a sigh of relief. She stuck out her tongue and said, "I didn't notice her. This junior marshal's sister doesn't seem to like talking much." The corners of Lin Ye's mouth twitched when he heard this. If you want to talk, then you have to find an opportunity to talk. The guards were ignored by Lin Yi and by Yunfei. Smiles still hung on their faces as they waited on the side. Not long later, Qingyu arrived. When she saw Lin Yi and Shun Qingyan looking at her, she couldn't help but blush. She asked softly, "Why are you looking at me? Could it be that you think I'm too annoying and want to spend some alone time?" "No." Shun Qingyan clenched her fist and said, "Who wants to spend some alone time with him?" "Junior sister, let's go in and fight the beasts." The corners of his mouth twitched. Lin Yi could only watch as Shun Qingyun pulled Qingyu into the building. "Young master, please." The guards extended their hands and smiled. Lin Yi responded with a smile and quickly followed in. After entering, a clamor suddenly sounded, causing Lin Yi to pause. He looked up and saw that he was surrounded by a large hall with several entrances. There was a counter in the middle of the hall. Shun Qingyun and Qing, you were waiting in front of the counter. "Junior brother Lin, come quickly." Shun Qingyun waved her hand. Seeing this, Lin Yi hurried over. Before he could say anything, Shun Qingyun stretched out her hand and said, "How many saint stones do you have? Give it to me." The corners of his mouth twitched. Lin Yi looked around and immediately saw the sign hanging on the wall. After entering the beast battle arena, one had to use special chips to place a bet. This was to prevent people from falsely reporting that they didn't have many saint stones. "Senior sister Shun, are we really going to bet?" Lin Yi was incomparably depressed. They came here to search for the 5 spirit gods' relics. He didn't expect Shun Qingyun to drag him to gamble. "Why not?" Shun Qingyun pouted and said, "So stingy? Then I'll take it as borrowing from you first. I'll return it to you in the future." "There's no need for that." With a sigh, Lin Yi took out 2 million saint stones. In an instant, Shun Qingyun was overjoyed. She smiled and said, "That's more like it. 2 million saint stones?" The person at the counter was stunned. The corners of his mouth twitched. His originally relaxed expression immediately became serious. "Miss, are you sure you want to exchange 2 million saint stones at once?" 2 million saint stones was a considerable amount of wealth, even for the great sage. Although there were many people in the great desolate city, their strength was not comparable to the 4 great regions. Therefore, they were moved when they saw so many saint stones. "Yes, quickly exchange." Shun Qingyun's heroic spirit reached the clouds. She waved her hand, but Lin Ye's face darkened. This was his holy stone. However, when Lin Yi thought about it, these saint stones were given to him by Flawless White. His mood became much better. Anyway, they were not his saint stones. If they were wasted, so be it. As if he was frightened by Shun Qingyun's heroism, the person at the counter took out 2,200,000 saint stones. He said respectfully, "Ladies and gentlemen, here are 2,200,000 saint stones. Have fun." The VIP area is on the 3rd basement level. There are fewer people and it's quieter. However, before the person could finish speaking, Shun Qingyun had already pulled Lin Yi and Qingyu into a passage. Seeing this, the person at the counter's eyelids twitched violently. He immediately took out a jade tablet and carved something on it. Then he crushed it. Phew! Such a forthright person. Could it be a first-rank clan? Or someone from the 4 great regions? Looks like we have to be more careful during this period. After entering the 1st basement level, the clamor filled the air, causing Lin Yi to frown slightly. Shun Qingyun was indeed completely high. She kept running around the arena. In the bestial battle arena, the bets were either on exotic beasts, martial arts battles, or competitions. It was extremely lively. However, most of the people who came to the bestial battle arena were men. At this time, the 2 beautiful girls, Shun Qingyun and Qingyu, came in and caused a huge commotion. Almost everyone turned their attention to Lin Yi and the rest. "Hey, these rabbits are so cute. They look like armored rabbits. Their armor hasn't grown out yet." Suddenly, Shun Qingyun was attracted by a group of rabbits. She squatted on the ground and played with the rabbits. If they are raised, it seems like the taste of braised rabbit meat will be very good. Lin Yi touched his nose and glanced at them. He did not find anything interesting. Hey, Shen Xingyun looked at Lin Yi with disdain. How can you think like that? All right, let's make a bet. Bet on what? Lin Yi shrugged and said casually, the chips in your hands are all mine. If you win, I'll promise you one thing. How about it? Shen Xingyun rolled her eyes, and a crafty look flashed across her eyes. Lin Yi raised his eyebrows. Not interested. You can bet with the others. Are you scared? Shen Xingyun stuck out her tongue. Miss, if he is not willing to bet with you, I am willing to bet with you. Suddenly, a voice sounded. The smile on Shen Xingyun's face gradually froze. End of chapter. Chapter 737. Miss, I'm willing to bet with you. Amidst the chuckles, a figure slowly walked over. Lin Yi and the other two raised their eyebrows when they saw who it was. The young man was dressed in a brocade robe and held a paper fan in his hand. He looked quite handsome. Behind him were several guards. It was obvious that the force behind him had a high status in Grand Desolation City. This made Lin Yi sigh faintly in his heart. Sure enough, a femme fatale. With a solemn expression, Shen Xingyun glanced at the young man and suddenly smiled. Sure, but do you have enough chips? I'm not going to play a small game. I'm afraid you can't afford it. Oh, hearing this, the young man was taken aback and immediately laughed out loud. Ha ha ha, you're forthright. Since you want to play, I'll play with you. Behind the young man, several guards began to laugh. Are you kidding? We're from the Mu clan, and our young master is the young master of the Mu clan. How can we not afford it? Ha, young master, do you want us to go back and get some more saint stones? Amidst the laughter, the rest of the people in the bestial battle arena looked over. When they saw the young man in the brocade robe, their eyes lit up and they surrounded him. It seems that the young master of the Mu clan is going to bet with someone else. It seems to be a girl. TSK, TSK. The young master of the Mu clan has good eyesight. He rarely makes mistakes. I think that group is going to lose big time. It seems that Mu Tian has never lost a few rounds, unless he meets the geniuses of the 4 major territories. The crowd discussed in low voices and pointed at Lin Yi, Shen Xingyun, and the others from time to time. Lin Yi could not help but frown. It seemed that the young man in the brocade robe was not a good-for-nothing. He was quite capable. Not bad. Shen Xingyun's eyes lit up, and she smiled. Interesting. Tell me, how do you want to bet? Mu Tian grinned and said, since you like these rabbits so much, why don't we bet on them? Will it be a civil battle or a martial battle? Shen Xingyun asked directly. Oh, Mu Tian's eyes also lit up. It seems that Miss is an expert. Hearing Shen Xingyun's words, Mu Tian understood that Shen Xingyun definitely did not come here to ask casually, which made him excited. Although he fancied Shen Xingyun's appearance, as a gambler, it was still good to have a chance to have fun. How about a battle of wits and a battle of martial arts? Mu Tian smiled and said, 2 chances. I want to see how strong you are. There's no need for that. I'm afraid you won't be able to afford it if we do it twice. Shen Xingyun glanced at Mu Tian, her eyes full of disdain. The corner of Mu Tian's mouth twitched as she felt very hurt. Just as she was about to speak, she heard the middle-aged man beside the rabbit cage say with a smile, since it's a martial battle, then I'll open the arena. As his voice sounded, the middle-aged man gently waved his right hand. A light screen condensed into an arena that appeared in front of everyone. The 2 of you, please choose your rabbit and wager. Mu Tian took a deep breath and chuckled softly. Miss, I wonder if you can accept 100,000 wager? Hiss, 100,000. It's just one game, and you're betting 100,000. The Mu clan is indeed the Mu clan. Only a force like the Mu clan can take out so many wagers in the gambling arena. 100,000 saint stones was a considerable amount of wealth for an ordinary saint. 100,000? Shen Xingyun's expression immediately became strange. She stared at Mu Tian and asked, Are you serious? Ahem. Mu Tian coughed softly and said in an extremely gentlemanly manner, If Miss thinks it's too much, we can reduce it a little. Too much. Shen Xingyun burst out laughing and said with contempt, That's too little. I've never bet less than 1,000,000. I wonder if you can afford 1,000,000 wager. The corner of Shun Qingyun's mouth curled up. She took out a red wager and handed it to the middle-aged man. In an instant, the crowd was stunned. Even a middle-aged man was stunned as he stared blankly at Shun Qingyun. A red wager was the highest wager in the bestial battle arena. Normally, no one would use it. Mu Tian couldn't help but blush when he saw the bright red wager. He felt a burning pain, as if someone had whipped him. He had just said that he had 100,000 wager, but someone had taken out 1,000,000. This was a blatant slap to his face. Hiss, it's really 1,000,000 wager. Heavens, this girl must have a powerful force behind her. How can an ordinary force take out so many wagers at once? Not necessarily. Maybe she's favored. Although 1,000,000 Saint Stones is a lot, it's not important in the eyes of first-rank clan. Not to mention, a first-rank clan, even a second-rank clan, can take it out if they grit their teeth. It won't hurt them. Amidst the exclamations, the crowd couldn't help but guess the identity of Lin Yi, Shun Qingyun, and the others. In the grand desolation city, Lin Yi and the others were unfamiliar faces. If they suddenly took out such a large amount of wealth, it would definitely arouse suspicion and jealousy. Of course, there would also be some people who had some special thoughts. How about it? Shun Qingyun said casually. Can you take out 1,000,000 wager? The corner of Mu Tian's mouth twitched. He didn't expect that he would be slapped in the face just because he wanted to get close to Shun Qingyun. 1,000,000 wager was not a big deal to his family, but it was not easy for him to use 1,000,000 wager. What? Weren't you so confident just now? Shun Qingyun yawned. She didn't take Mu Tian seriously at all. Mu Tian frowned. Just as he was about to speak, his eyes lit up. He gritted his teeth and said, "Okay, 1,000,000 wager. I'll follow." If Mu Tian had just wanted to get to know Shun Qingyun, now he wanted to win the 1,000,000 wager from Shun Qingyun. 1,000,000 wager was enough to buy a high-grade supreme sacred artifact and raise his strength to another level. In this world where the strong were respected, raising one's strength was always more important than women. Hey, how many holy stones do you have? Go and exchange all of them for chips. Mu Tian glared at the guards and urged them to exchange their chips. No need. Shun Qingyun said indifferently. You can bet 100,000 wager. If you lose, in addition to the 100,000 wager, give me another 900,000 holy stones. Okay. Mu Tian nodded slightly. He couldn't help but clench his fists. He was extremely excited. Looking at the bright red wager, his eyes were full of desire. Gulp! The middle-aged man swallowed a mouthful of saliva. Only then did he react. He hurriedly accepted Shun Qingyun and Mu Tian's wager. Immediately, he revealed a flattering smile. "Miss, please choose the armored rabbit." In an instant, the onlookers gathered around and stared at Shun Qingyun and the others. They were very curious. Was Shun Qingyun bold because of her skill, or did she have too many holy stones? End of chapter. Chapter 738. The so-called battle in the bestial battle arena was a wager. Both parties would use their eyesight to pick demonic beasts of similar cultivation levels and races and let them fight. Whoever picked the winning demonic beast would win. This was not just a test of luck, but more of a test of eyesight. Although Mu Tian was young, he had been in the bestial battle arena for many years. His eyesight was strong, and he rarely lost. The people who were attracted by the wager were all envious of Mu Tian. 1,000,000 chips. If he won, he could get 800,000 Saint Stones, even if he took the bestial battle arena's commission. Taking a deep breath, Mu Tian suppressed his excitement and said with a smile, "Miss, you are a guest from afar. Please choose first." Okay. Shun Qingyun did not waste any time. She immediately squatted down and started to choose the armored rabbit. Lin Yi and Qing Yu were also sizing him up carefully, but they became suspicious. They could see that these armored rabbits were all in their infancy. Their physiques were similar, and their mental states were not very good. There was basically nothing special about them. In this way, wouldn't the outcome of the battle depend on the will of the heavens? Lin Yi, Do you think senior sister Shin can win? Qin Yu asked softly. I think so. Lin Yi rubbed his nose. When he saw that Shun Xingyun was picking the armored rabbits with good looks and kept muttering whether they looked good or not, his face turned ugly. Was this a wager? Phew, it doesn't matter. It's just 1,000,000 saint stones. If I lose, I lose. Lin Yi let out a breath. He did not care too much. To them, 1,000,000 saint stones were useless. Mu Tian sensed this and became excited. He was definitely going to win this battle. Other people might pick spirit beasts casually, but he was different. He had special means to make spirit beasts mutate and release power beyond their own for a short time. He lost a few times before because he wanted to build a good relationship with the geniuses of the 4 major regions. When he saw that Shun Xingyun was so forthright, he thought that she also had some special means. But now, it seemed that he was wrong. This girl can easily take out 1,000,000 saint stones. It's clear that the faction behind her isn't weak. Even if I win against her, I have to leave a good impression on her. If I can be with her, it might be an opportunity for me. Thinking of this, Mu Tian immediately walked up with a light smile and guided Shin Xingyun to choose the iron-armored rabbit. He could see that Shun Xingyun didn't know much about spirit beasts. However, Shun Xingyun was extremely vexed by Mu Tian's guidance. With a cold snort, Shun Xingyun ignored Mu Tian and quickly picked a cute iron shell rabbit. This girl seems to be picking at random. Does she know how to pick? That iron armor rabbit's physique is so weak. Why do I feel that she's here to deliver the holy stone to Mu Tian? That's right. She seems to pick whichever rabbit she sees is pretty. When the discussion reached this point, everyone could not help but fall silent. They didn't understand the world of the rich. Miss, are you sure? Mu Tian revealed a gentlemanly smile and didn't change in the slightest because of Shun Xingyun's indifference. Aren't you annoying? Hurry up and pick one. Shun Xingyun was in high spirits. The iron-armored rabbit I chose will definitely win. Is that so? The corners of Mu Tian's mouth curled up. He didn't even look at those rabbits and casually picked one up and threw it onto the arena formed by the light. Hiss! Is Mu Tian giving way to that girl? He didn't even look. Is Mu Tian that confident? Or is he willing to give up 1,000,000 saint stones for a beauty? No, from what I see, Mu Tian is definitely confident. Don't forget that he's quite sensitive to spirit beasts. When the spectators saw this scene, they were all stunned. They were convinced that Shun Xingyun was rich and willful. But what was Mu Tian trying to do? He didn't even want the 1,000,000 saint stones in his hands. However, Lin Ye's expression became serious. When Mu Tian picked up the iron-armored rabbit just now, a green light flashed from Mu Tian's hand and entered the iron-armored rabbit's body. Mu Tian's speed was too fast. If Lin Yi hadn't coincidentally glanced at it, he probably wouldn't have noticed. So he's only able to maintain such a high winning rate by using some tricks? Lin Yi raised his eyebrows and couldn't help but smile. If Mu Tian didn't do anything, Lin Yi wouldn't care. It was just 1,000,000 saint stones. If he lost, so be it. However, if he wanted to use some tricks to cheat the saint stones, wouldn't he be treating Sibu Gakuin as if there was no one else? Lin Yi was about to step forward and ask Shin Xingyun to change to another iron-armored rabbit when he saw that Shun Xingyun had already thrown the iron-armored rabbit onto the arena. He couldn't help but frown. Once the spirit beasts of both sides entered the light screen arena, they couldn't leave. Lin Yi couldn't help but hesitate. He didn't know if Bill Yuo could affect the 2 iron-armored rabbits through the light screen as a soul. At this moment, the 2 iron-armored rabbits on the light screen arena were provoked and started to attack each other. At first, it was fine. Both sides were evenly matched because their physiques were similar. However, as time passed, the iron-armored rabbit chosen by Mu Tian became more and more courageous. Even if its body was injured, it wouldn't retreat. It was incomparably brave. After Shin Xingyun's iron-armor rabbit was hit a few times, it was terrified and didn't dare to fight back. It just kept defending. It seems like it's going to lose. Sensing this, Shin Xingyun pouted and waved her little hands to cheer for the iron-armored rabbit. The surrounding crowd shook their heads and were all envious of Mutian. To be able to win 1,000,000 saint stones in a bet, what kind of luck was this? Frowning slightly, Lin Yi called out to Biluo in his consciousness, wanting to interfere with this bet. After learning of Lin Ye's request, Biluo didn't reply. In the next moment, a strange cat with wings suddenly appeared on Lin Ye's shoulder. Oh! As soon as the strange cat appeared, it licked Lin Ye's cheek. Little guy, you can interfere with the 2 iron-armored rabbits in the light screen? Just as he was about to throw the strange cat down, Lin Yi thought of this possibility and stared at the strange cat. Meow, meow. The strange cat blinked and immediately stretched out its paw to tap on the light screen. An invisible wave quietly rippled and disappeared into the light screen arena. Lin Yi turned his head and saw that the iron-armored rabbit, which was getting more and more courageous, trembled. It took a few steps back and stiffened on the spot. The power in its body also began to dissipate. Previously, Mutian had done something to it to stimulate its mind so that it couldn't feel pain and temporarily burst out with powerful strength. But now, that stimulation had disappeared. The iron-armored rabbit felt intense pain and couldn't hold on anymore. It fell to the ground with a bang. What's going on? It's about to win. What's wrong with it? It suddenly has no strength? Seeing this scene, everyone was stunned and astonished. It was the first time they had seen such a situation in a bet. In a chapter. Chapter 739. Mutian shook his head violently, unable to believe his eyes. The method he used was enough to keep the demonic beast in a state of mental stimulation for an hour. How could it end so quickly? For a moment, Mutian became anxious. Although the stimulation effect of this method was very strong, there would be a strong backlash after it lost its effect. Cuckoo! At this moment, Shun Qingyun's armored rabbit noticed the abnormality. Its eyes were slightly red as it raised the armor on its forehead and charged towards Mutian's armored rabbit. Bang! The iron-armored rabbit had already suffered a strong backlash. Without any defensive power, it was directly sent flying and heavily slammed into the light curtain. Under this heavy blow, the iron-armored rabbit was unable to endure any longer and fainted. No! Mutian's expression changed drastically as he exclaimed, "How is this possible? How could it suddenly become so weak? It must be you guys who are playing tricks." In anger and fear, Mutian's eyes were bloodshot as he stared at Xinqian. That was 1,000,000 saint stones. Even he felt the pinch. Moreover, he had suddenly lost when he thought he was about to win and had lost 1,000,000 saint stones. How could he not be angry? It must be you guys who are playing tricks in the dark. Glaring fiercely at Lin Yi and the others, Mutian waved his hand. In an instant, a dozen guards surrounded Lin Yi and the others. The surrounding crowd was also extremely surprised as they looked curiously at Lin Yi and the others. They also thought that Lin Yi and the others were playing tricks. After all, Mutian's defeat was too unbelievable. Seeing this scene, the middle-aged man was stunned. He was stunned for a moment before he shouted coldly, "Mutian, are you trying to cause trouble in the beast battle arena? If someone is playing tricks, it will be our people who will deal with it." Hearing this, Mutian gradually calmed down. He waved his hand and dismissed the guards, but he still stared at Lin Yi and the others. "TSK, can't afford to lose?" Xinqian blinked her eyes and suddenly laughed. "Weren't you very arrogant just now? You can't afford to lose a mere 1,000,000 saint stones? Damn it, you must have done something to it. Otherwise, why will my steel-armored rabbit suddenly die?" Mutian sneered. "Hurry up and call out the people inside the Animal Fighting Coliseum to check that rabbit. They will definitely find something abnormal." Crash! Suddenly, a series of footsteps could be heard as more than a dozen armored guards rushed over. The leader of the group had a burly figure with saint energy surging in his body. He was actually a great sage powerhouse. What happened? The leader glanced at the crowd and frowned when he saw that it was Mutian who was causing trouble. The Mu family was not weak in the Grand Desolation City. He did not want to fall out with Mu Tian, so he immediately went up to her. "Young Master Mu, what's wrong?" Mu Tian snorted coldly and said in a low voice, "Commander Zhang, you came at the right time. These three people are using other means to influence the demonic beasts. If you don't believe me, you can check the demonic beasts." "Oh, someone actually dares to cause trouble in the animal fighting coliseum?" Hearing that, Zhang Yoming's face suddenly turned serious as he looked in the direction where Mu Tian was pointing. "That's true. If you check it, you will definitely find something unexpected." Lin Yi suddenly took a step forward and said in a low voice, "You guys go and check the demonic beast that young Master Mu chose. Look carefully and see how it is damaged. If I'm not wrong, it should be a backlash after being stimulated. There should be something wrong with its internal organs. It is not a shock injury caused by the collision." "What? You?" Hearing Lin Ye's words, the corner of Mu Tian's mouth twitched, and he could not help but take a few steps back. Looking at Lin Yi, his eyes were filled with horror. Mu Tian could not believe that Lin Yi had seen through his trick. He had dominated the animal fighting coliseum in the Grand Desolation City for more than a decade and earned countless saint stones and resources. Even the top powerhouses in the animal fighting coliseum did not notice it and thought that he had a special sense for demonic beasts. This is... Zhang Yoming rolled his eyes and glanced at Mu Tian. Seeing that his forehead was covered in sweat, his heart suddenly trembled. He was sure that Mu Tian was hiding something. After staring at Mu Tian for a moment, Zhang Yoming asked in a deep voice, "Young Master Mu, what is going on?" "Cough, cough, no problem." Mu Tian hurriedly said, "I admit defeat in this bet." "What a joke." Lin Yi had already said it. If you want to check it, it was inevitable that he would find out that he had done something. Speaking of this, Mu Tian could not help but glare fiercely at Lin Yi. He was still surprised and did not understand how Lin Yi could see through his trick. Even many top powerhouses in the Great Sage could not see through it. How could Lin Yi, the saint, see through it? Someone go and check it. However, Zhang Yoming waved his hand and motioned for someone to check. In an instant, Mu Tian's face was extremely pale. "Oh, guilty," Lin Yi said indifferently. "The thief is crying out to catch the thief. You're quite good at this." "The thief is crying out to catch the thief?" Shen Qingyan blinked and suddenly asked, "Junior brother Lin, you're saying that this guy secretly did something?" As soon as he finished speaking, everyone was shocked. The onlookers went crazy. That's impossible, right? Mu Tian has been in the animal fighting arena for more than 10 years. He chooses the demonic beasts purely based on his own judgment. Moreover, he rarely comes into contact with demonic beasts. How could he do something? Yes, there are many top great sage powerhouses in the beginning, but they did not see through Mu Tian's trick. Hearing this, the nervous Mu Tian's face relaxed a lot. As long as others believed him, everything would be easy. "Commander, one of the two steel-armored rabbits is fine. Although it's injured, it's all superficial wounds. As for the other steel-armored rabbit..." Speaking of this, the disciple who came forward to check glanced at Mu Tian and continued, "Its internal organs are all damaged. Moreover, it's damaged from the inside out, not because of the impact. However, its internal injuries are recovering. In a while, it will be completely recovered." Hearing this, Mu Tian's face was extremely pale. Ordinary sages might not understand these principles, but Zhang Yoming was a great sage. How could he not understand? "Haha, young Master Mu, you're really good at this." Zhang Yoming's face darkened. He looked at Mu Tian with an extremely cold expression. They had suspected Mu Tian previously, but they had not caught him doing anything. After the competition, there was no problem when they checked the demonic beast physiques. Unexpectedly, Mu Tian had calculated the time and coincidentally ended the competition. Coincidentally, the demonic beast that he had tampered with had also recovered. Mu Tian's face changed drastically. He suddenly turned around, and the spiritual energy in his body surged. A powerful force swept out like a tsunami. End of chapter. Chapter 740. Boom, boom, boom. The violent force swept across. Most of the onlookers were weak and could not withstand it. They were sent flying. At the same time, several of Mu Tian's guards rushed out and blocked the crowd, allowing Mu Tian to escape quickly. "How dare you run?" Many of the Animal Arena's guards were shocked. They were about to rush forward, but were stopped by Zhang Yongming. "Don't chase. Tie these guards up. Then, we will go to the Mu family and settle the score with them." Zhang Yongming sneered. "The Mu family is a big family. How can he run away?" Hearing that, the Animal Arena's guards rushed forward and caught the Mu family's guards. The Mu family's guards understood that they were powerless to resist. Their mission was completed and they surrendered. Lin Yi glanced at Zhang Yongming and said indifferently, "We won this battle. Are you not going to give us the chips?" "Ahem, I forgot." The middle-aged man coughed awkwardly and handed 1,000,000 chips to Shen Qingyan. Hee. Shen Qingyan was overjoyed when she received the chips and smiled. To her, the holy stones were not a problem. The main thing was that they won. "Brother, thank you for your reminder." Zhang Yongming walked to Lin Yi and bowed slightly. He asked, "How did you know that he had done something? If possible, we will go to the Mu family later to ask for an explanation. Can you come with us to prove it? Of course, we will also reward you." Even now, Zhang Yongming and the rest did not know what Mu Tian had done. They were worried that Mu Tian would go back on his word. Therefore, they wanted Lin Yi to go with them. "Forget about the reward." Lin Yi yawned and said indifferently, "Coincidentally, I'm also going to the Mu family to ask for the rest of the bet. Let's go together." "Ah, not playing anymore?" Hearing that, Shen Qingyun exclaimed and looked at Lin Yi angrily. Some time ago, she had been following Theta Scarabii to cultivate. Now that she finally had the chance to come out, she wanted to play for a while longer. "You want to play? Can you continue playing?" Lin Yi shrugged his shoulders. Upon seeing this, Shen Qingyun looked around and realized that everyone's eyes were focused on them. She could not help but stick out her tongue. At this time, Shen Qingyun also understood that she couldn't play anymore. "All right, let's go and collect our debt." Shen Qingyun rubbed her nose and smiled. It seems that collecting debts is quite interesting. Interesting. Hearing Shen Qingyun's words, the corners of Zhang Yongming's mouth couldn't help but twitch. He took a deep look at Lin Yi and the other two. "Phew, the three of you, please wait outside for a moment. If there's anything you need, just tell them directly. I'll go find them right away." Zhang Yongming bowed slightly to Lin Yi and the other two before quickly leaving. A few guards brought Lin Yi out of the crowd and came to the hall. Shen Qingyun took back the chips and handed the holy stone to Lin Yi. "Hee, junior brother Lin, look how awesome I am. Not only did I not spend your holy stone, I even earn a lot for you." Shen Qingyun had a brilliant smile on her face. Her beautiful face caused everyone in the hall to turn silent. Lin Yi did not accept the holy stone and said softly, "Keep it. We still have to stay in the desolate god realm for a while." "All right." Shen Qingyun did not stand on ceremony with Lin Yi and took it back. She was so fast that Lin Yi and Qingwei didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Not long after, Zhang Yongming and an old man rushed out. "The three of you, let me introduce you. This is our Beast Battle Arena's third elder, Su Tianzheng." Zhang Yongming pointed at the old man. Lin Yi and the other two glanced at him. Their expressions did not change, and they only nodded slightly. Sensing this, the corners of Su Tianzheng and Zhang Yongming's mouths twitched, especially that old man, who was at the peak of the great sage realm. Who wouldn't bow to him when they saw him? Being ignored today, he immediately felt angry in his heart. But when he thought about it, even he could not detect Mu Tian's movements, but Lin Yi could. There must be something special about her. He immediately suppressed the anger in his heart and revealed a smile. "The three of you, it's all thanks to you that my Beast Battle Arena's losses were avoided. Here are 5,000,000 holy stones. Take it as this old man's thank you gift." As he spoke, Su Tianzheng raised his hand and took out a storage ring. On the way here, he had already learned about the previous situation from Zhu Mingyong. He understood that Lin Yi and the other two had a strong force behind them, so he was rather generous. "No need. We're just protecting our rights. Shaking his head slightly, Lin Yi said indifferently, "When are we going to the Mu clan?" Seeing Lin Ye's stern rejection and Shun Qingyun's indifferent expressions, he already knew that Lin Yi and the other two were indeed not interested in 5 million holy stones. He immediately put it away and was even more surprised. Even a first-rank family would be tempted by 5 million holy stones. Could it be that these 3 people were from a first-rank family that was ranked at the top? Su Tianjung rolled his eyes and said in a deep voice, "The Mu clan has gone too far. They actually used underhanded methods to cheat my beast battle arena of resources. This time, I will not let them off easily. However, I still need your help to correct me. After this matter is over, I'll give you a big gift." After sensing that the force behind Lin Yi and the other two was not weak, Su Tianjung had already decided in his heart that he must establish a connection with Lin Yi and the others. "There's no need for that." Lin Yi glanced at Su Tianjung and said indifferently, "You guys lead the way." "Okay." Su Tianjung grinned and cursed in his heart. Then, he waved his hand and led Zhang Yongming and the others out of the beast battle arena in a mighty manner. Lin Yi and the other two followed behind leisurely. In an instant, the entire Grand Desolation City was in an uproar. The beast battle arena was one of the top forces in Grand Desolation City. Usually, no one dared to provoke them. Now that the beast battle arena was making such a big fuss, everyone was shocked. In addition, some insiders had revealed the news. Almost everyone was looking forward to the clash between the beast battle arena and the Mu clan. They all rushed to the Mu clan. As a result, before Su Tianjung and the others reached the Mu clan was already surrounded by onlookers. At the same time, in the backyard of the Mu clan, bang! The crisp sound of a slap was heard. In the next moment, Mu Tian's body was sent flying and crashed heavily into the wall. "Trash, it's just a loss. Why are you still talking about tampering? Ask someone to check. Aren't you courting death?" An angry roar was heard. An old man glared at Mu Tian, his face full of anger. If no one stopped him, he would probably beat Mu Tian to death. "Father, I didn't expect that bastard to see through my tampering." Mu Tian covered her face and was extremely depressed. "That's enough. Get out of here. You're not allowed to return to Grand Desolation City for a month. After I've settled this matter, I'll make arrangements for you." The old man waved his hand and said helplessly, "If you don't get out of here now, you'll be in trouble when the people from the beast battle arena come." As soon as he finished speaking, he looked as if he had aged 10 years. His entire person became haggard. In a chapter. Chapter 741. That's right. "Father, why should we be afraid of the bestial battle arena?" Mu Tian blinked and asked suspiciously, "We have other powers behind us. Why should we be afraid of them?" You good for nothing, still dawdling here. Hurry up and get lost." Mu Zheng's eyes widened. He waved his hand again and slapped at Mu Tian, sending her flying. "Get lost. The bestial battle arena also has other powers behind them. Hurry up and run to the cities of the 4 great domains. Only then can we guarantee your safety." Hearing Mu Zheng's words, Mu Tian immediately looked pitiful. What a joke. The Mu family's power was limited to the Grand Desolated City. Even the people behind them could only show off in the desolate God realm. If they were in the 4 great domains, wouldn't they have to tuck their tails between their legs and behave themselves? However, on second thought, there were other powers behind the bestial battle arena as well. If he did not leave, he would have to pay a huge price. At this thought, Mu Tian no longer hesitated. He immediately got up and ran towards the back door. However, before Mu Tian could run out, several servants rushed in from all directions. Their faces were filled with panic. "Old master, this is bad. Many people have surrounded the Mu family. I heard that the people from the bestial battle arena will be here soon. Old master, what should we do?" Mu Tian's face changed drastically. It was as white as a sheet and was devoid of blood. His heart was filled with panic. The corners of Mu Zheng's mouth twitched. He turned around and looked at Mu Tian. His eyes were filled with pain, as if he was struggling with something. "Father, what should I do now?" Mu Tian sat down on the ground and stared blankly at Mu Zheng. "Phew, carry this. No matter what, don't say that you tampered with it. I'll find someone now." Mu Zheng clenched his fists and suddenly crushed the jade pendant on his waist. His expression was extremely solemn. Mu Tian was his son after all. He could not give up until the very last moment. "All right, father, I'll listen to you." Swallowing a mouthful of saliva, Mu Tian couldn't help but resent Lin Yi and Shen Qingyan. If it had not been for Lin Yi, he would not have been discovered. It goes without saying that the bestial battle arena had acted quickly and did not give Mu Tian any time to escape. In less than the time it took to brew a cup of tea, Su Tianzheng had already brought many guards to the Mu family. Taking a deep breath, Su Tianzheng clenched his right hand into a fist. His saint energy surged and turned into a giant tiger, slamming into the door of the Mu family. Bang! The door made of gold and iron was smashed away, and the entire Mu family trembled. "Mu Zheng, you old bastard, get out here." The roar of a furious dragon reverberated in the air. All of a sudden, the crowd became excited. They hadn't even met yet, but the smell of gunpowder was already so strong. Wouldn't they definitely start fighting later? The onlookers were extremely excited, but they took a few steps back. Mu Zheng's cultivation was at the pinnacle of the great sage. If they really fought, his destructive power would be extremely strong. They did not want to suffer an undeserved calamity. "Haha, old Ghost Su, why have you come to my Mu clan?" Amidst the loud laughter, shocking saintly might descended and spread out, instantly eliminating the sound waves. A figure, dressed in martial attire, walked out from the inner courtyard with several elders behind him. The Mu clan was still a powerful force. Other than Mu Zheng, there were two other powerhouses at the Great Sage Realm. This strength was not much weaker than the various forces in Lori City. "Mu Zheng, how can you not know what your son has done?" Su Tianzheng took a step forward, his eyes fixed on the elder. He said in a low voice, "What a scheme. I used to think that Mu Tian was really capable. I didn't expect him to be a thief. He actually used underhanded means to trick my bestial battle arena. But if you want to trick my bestial battle arena, your Mu clan alone is not enough." Speaking of this, Su Tianjing's anger surged. If not for the fact that the Mu clan was not weak, he would have already rushed up to attack. Over the years, Mu Tian had won a lot of resources from the bestial battle arena. "Ha ha ha, what a joke." Mu Zheng laughed coldly. "Old Ghost Su, when did you become so shameless? I think that your bestial battle arena can't afford to lose. So you slander my son. You said that my son used underhanded means. I wonder what underhanded means he used." Back then, dozens of great sage realm powerhouses and a few invincible saints praised my son. How could he have used underhanded means? Hearing Mu Zheng's words, the surrounding crowd was stunned and could not help but look at Su Tianzheng. Those powerhouses did not see through Mu Tian's underhanded means, so they naturally did not believe it. They really thought that the bestial battle arena was causing trouble. "Oomph, I knew that you would say that." Su Tianzheng laughed coldly, turned to Lin Yi, and said in a low voice, "Little brother, please expose Mu Tian's underhanded means." "You!" Glancing at Su Tianzheng, Lin Yi sighed, his heart full of disdain. Just by looking at Mu Zheng's words, he could tell that they were determined to deny it. At this time, there was no need to talk about reasons. They could just use their fists. Shaking his head slightly, Lin Yi said to Mu Zheng, "Call your son out. He made a bet with my senior sister earlier, and there's still 900,000 saint stones that he hasn't paid." "Oh, interesting." Hearing that, Mu Zheng laughed coldly again. He sized up Lin Yi, and after realizing that his aura was only that of an invincible saint, he said disdainfully, "Who are you? Where did you come from? You say that my son owes you a bet, so he owes you a bet." "I didn't expect that your bestial battle arena would be so shameless. You old bastard, your Mu family is really shameless to the extreme." Hearing Mu Zheng's words, Su Tianzheng was furious. The saint energy in his body was like thunder, exploding in the air, and surging power bloomed. What? You want to fight? Mu Zheng's shoulders shook, and his saint energy also erupted, blocking the saint aura that filled the sky. Both of them were at the peak of the great sage realm, and their strength was similar. If they wanted to fight, it would be inevitable that both of them would suffer. At the same time, the two great sage saints behind Mu Zheng also took a step forward, and the saint energy in their bodies gushed out continuously. With their help, Su Tianzheng suddenly felt the pressure increase, and he could not help but take a few steps back. Sigh. With a soft sigh, Lin Yi waved his right hand lightly, and the five elements territory exploded, instantly eliminating all of the saint aura. What? How is this possible? Mu Zheng and the rest's arms shook, and they staggered back a few steps. When they looked up, their expressions immediately turned grave. They could not believe that a mere invincible saint could break through their saint aura. I say, are you really going to renege on my senior sister's bet? Raising his eyebrows slightly, Lin Ye's voice gradually turned cold, and a cold light suddenly flashed in his eyes as he looked at Mu Zheng and the rest. End of chapter. Chapter 742. I say, are you really going to renege on my senior sister's bet? Mu Zheng and the rest felt their bodies tremble, and they could not help but take a few more steps back. Such power! Su Tianjing's mouth was agape. He was shocked when he saw Lin Ye's expression. Humph! Don't even think about extorting the Mu family. Mu Zheng shook his head and laughed coldly. I've already sent the news to the Thunderclap sect. You're finished. Thunderclap sect? Su Tianjing's mouth twitched. Mu Zheng, do you really want to make a big deal out of this? What do you mean by making a big deal out of this? Mu Zheng shouted. I think the animal arena is trying to extort the Mu family. You said that my son used underhanded means to get back the resources. Fine, I can give them to you. But now, you've joined forces with others to cheat us of 1 million saint stones. Impossible. You bastard. You're unreasonable. Su Tianzheng was infuriated. He was so infuriated that he wanted nothing more than to kill Mu Zheng right away. However, Mu Zheng was too powerful. He alone could not defeat Mu Zheng. He had thought that the animal arena's reputation would be enough to suppress Mu Zheng and make him admit his mistake. However, he did not expect Mu Zheng to be so unyielding and call for help. In this way, it would be difficult for anyone to clean up the mess. Phew, I don't care if you call for help or not. There's only one thing I want. Give me the saint stones. Lin Yi said calmly. My senior sister finally made a bet with someone. If you can't even get what you want, and she gets angry, all of you will die. All of you will die. Haha, what a boastful tone. Mu Zheng laughed when he heard that. His face was full of mockery. You little dolls dare to boast so shamelessly? You're just a saint. Don't think that you have the right to talk to us, just because you can break through our saint aura. Mu Zheng sneered and waved his hand. Qingping, go and kill this guy. He's too noisy. Yes. As soon as he finished speaking, a great sage beside Lin Yi leaped up, raising a sharp blade in his hand and thrusting it towards Lin Yi. Buzz! The sound of something breaking through the air rang out. In an instant, a sharp wind whistled out and filled the entire space. Feeling that strong fluctuation, the onlookers immediately took a few steps back, their expressions extremely solemn. At this moment, no one dared to underestimate the Mu clan. Shua! Suddenly, a silver-white light flashed. Endless saber intent was like a hurricane, gathering crazily. The figure in the air suddenly stiffened, and the light in his eyes gradually faded. Pucci! Blood splattered everywhere. That figure collapsed with a loud bang, as if fireworks were set off. Blood splattered all over the ground. Some even landed on the faces of Mu Zheng and the others, causing their mouths to twitch. Following their dazed gazes, they saw a young lady standing not far away from them with a huge saber in her hand. Her expression was indifferent, but the strong saber intent frightened them so much that they did not dare to move. In an instant, Mu Zheng broke down. What was going on? Didn't they only offend the beast fighting arena? Why did another saber Dao expert appear? You reneged on my bet and dared to attack my people. Oh, the Mu clan is really bold. A smile appeared on Shun Qingyun's face as she tilted her head slightly. However, her biting cold words almost caused Mu Zheng to cry. At this moment, no matter how stupid he was, he could tell that the person who had bet with Mu Tian was this girl. Father! At this moment, Mu Tian tidied up her clothes and rushed out from the inner courtyard. It's you. As soon as she came out, Mu Tian saw Lin Yi and Shen Qingyun, and her expression immediately turned grim. After that, she shouted with a grim voice. Bastard! Both of you actually dared to come to my Mu clan. You're courting death. Hearing this, Mu Zheng could not help but close his eyes and shed tears of regret. What sin did I commit to have such a foolish son? Can't you see the current situation clearly? Clap, clap, clap. The sound of clapping was heard. Lin Yi looked at Mu Tian as though he was looking at a fool. He sighed and said, I advise you to look at the current situation and think about how to speak to me. Hearing this, Mu Tian blinked and turned her head. She was stunned when she realized that her father and the other expert of the great sage realm did not even dare to move. They were only trembling on the spot. What is going on? Mu Tian's mouth was slightly agape. She was extremely shocked. In her memory, her father was already one of the top experts in the great wasteland city. As long as no one from the 4 great regions came, almost no one could compete with him. Even the beast fighting arena would be wary of her father's strength. But now, the extremely powerful father in her heart was trembling in front of Shen Qingyun. Oh, senior sister and I are only here to take back the bet. By the way, your methods are very despicable and immoral. Lin Yi took a step forward and slowly walked toward Mu Tian and Mu Zheng. He said indifferently, hand over 900,000 saint stones and we'll leave. This, Mu Tian swallowed a mouthful of saliva and turned to look at Mu Zheng. Sigh. With a sigh, Mu Zheng gritted his teeth and said, Fine, 900,000 saint stones. I'll give it to you. Wouldn't it have been better if you did this from the start? Lin Yi raised his eyebrows and waved his hand. Shen Qingyun dispersed the force and stabbed the long saber in her hand into the ground, leaning on the saber. The corner of Mu Zheng's mouth twitched a few times. He sized up Lin Yi and Shen Qingyun. After confirming that he was no match for them, he could only wave his hand helplessly and take out a storage ring from his waist. Seeing this scene, the surrounding crowd all sucked in a breath of cold air and were extremely shocked. They could not believe that the great Mu family would succumb to the hands of 2 young people. Crackle, crackle, boom, boom. All of a sudden, dark clouds gathered in the sky and pressed down on them. Violent lightning flashed and struck down, bringing with it streaks of electric light one after another. Feeling the violent power of the lightning, Mu Zheng's body froze. Then, a crazed look appeared on his face. Ha! The experts of the Thunderclap sect are here. I like to see if you can still be so arrogant. Lin Yi and Shen Qingyun's faces darkened, and anger burned in their hearts. Crackle, crackle. The lightning struck, and a few figures landed beside Mu Zheng and the others. The light blue lightning flashed and shone on the few figures, making them look like gods. The surging saint aura, mixed with the violent aura of lightning, filled the entire space and shocked everyone present. The invincible great sage. Gosh, the Mu family can even invite the invincible great sage. End of chapter. Chapter 743. The invincible great sage was one of the top elites in the desolate god realm. As for the heavenly sage elites, they were legendary existences. The great barren city was not considered powerful in the desolate god realm. Hence, it was shocking that there were 2 invincible great sage. Lin Yi and Shen Qingyun looked at each other and raised their eyebrows. They did not expect that there would be 2 invincible great sage. Although the invincible great sage in the desolate god realm was not as powerful as the geniuses from the other 4 domains, it would be difficult for them to defeat them in a short period of time. Those who could break through to the invincible Great Sage realm were all exceptional talents. Ha ha ha. Su Tianzheng and you two little guys, I would like to see how you're going to blackmail the Mu family. With reinforcements, Mu Zheng became excited and laughed out loud. Upon hearing this, Lin Yi glanced at Mu Zheng and said softly, "Do you really think that you could be saved by inviting two stinky fishes and shrimps?" Stinky fishes and shrimps? Kid, what did you say? Upon hearing this, the two men from the Thunderclap sect turned pale and stared at Lin Yi fiercely. Initially, they wanted to mock Mu Zheng for being stumped by the two little guys. However, they were now angered by Lin Yi and only wanted to humiliate Lin Yi. These two guys, the corners of Su Tianzheng and Zhang Yongming's mouths twitched. They had originally wanted to speak nicely with the Thunderclap sect, but they hadn't expected that Lin Ye's words would offend them so badly. Phew, you want to stand up for the Mu family? Lin Ye's expression did not change, and he said calmly, "If you are sure, don't regret it." What a joke, little guy. You're the first person who dares to speak to me like this. Damn it. Han Tong, don't waste your breath on this kid. Let's capture him first. When the two great sages saw that Lin Yi dared to talk to them like that, they were immediately enraged. They raised their hands, and hundreds of blue thunderbolts burst forth, blasting towards Lin Yi. "If you want to bully my junior brother, you'll have to get through me first." The next moment, Shun Qingyun raised her hand, picked up the long sword in her hand, and ran towards Shocking Thunder. Shua! The sharp saber light swept across. The ice-cold saber intent was like a sharp ice blade, instantly slicing apart the lightning. In the next moment, Shun Qingyun brandished her long saber. The violent saber chi danced wildly and enveloped the invincible great sage. Bang, bang, bang. Thunder rumbled and saber chi danced wildly. The battle between the two of them formed a ball of light that flew high into the sky. Seeing this scene, the other invincible great sage couldn't help but be stunned. What's going on? Shun Qingyun looked like she was only at the initial stage of the great sage. How could she erupt with such tyrannical power and stall his friend? The gap between each stage of the great sage was like a natural chasm. Normally, 10 great sage at the initial stage wouldn't be a match for one great sage at the intermediate stage. But now, Shun Qingyun displayed strength that exceeded her by several stages, which surprised him. The strength of almost an entire stage. Could it be that they are geniuses from the four domains? Han Tong's eyes spun as a possibility suddenly appeared in his mind. In an instant, his face turned incomparably pale. Although the desolate god realm didn't belong to the four domains, if they offended the geniuses from the four domains, they would still die miserably. Thinking up to here, Han Tong saw Lin Yi slowly walking towards him and immediately panicked immensely, hurriedly shouting, "Who are you?" "Oh!" Raising his eyebrows, Lin Yi curled his lips and said in a low voice, "Want to test our identity? It's too late. Anyone who provokes us will have to pay the price." As soon as his voice fell, Lin Yi's figure flashed and instantly arrived in front of Han Tong. His left hand formed a fist, and his right index finger suddenly pointed out. Celestial Emperor Fist, Sky-destroying finger. The violent fist momentum and sharp finger wind hit Han Tong's body with a loud bang. Bang! Han Tong only felt pain in his chest, as if it was a giant hammer hammering him. He was immediately sent flying. His internal organs were tumbling violently. The pain was like a tide, constantly invading his sea of consciousness. Damn it, you're only at the invincible sage realm. How can you have such strong strength? Han Tong's face changed drastically. He was sure that Lin Yi, Shun Qingyun, and the others' identities were definitely not ordinary. But at this time, they had already started fighting. Even if he admitted defeat, there was no way. Clenching his teeth, Han Tong did not think anymore. Flipping his hands, icy blue lightning bloomed, immediately enveloping his entire person. Thunderclap, roar. Both fists swept out and suddenly blasted out. The next moment, violent lightning rolled out like a wave, smashing toward Lin Yi. Buzz. Lin Yi's expression did not change. Raising his right hand lightly, his index finger sketched in the air. Several divine inscriptions appeared. A strange power rippled, suddenly freezing the lightning that filled the sky. Space seal, slow, elemental annihilation, and other divine inscriptions appeared at the same time. The next moment, the lightning that filled the sky dissipated. What? How is this possible? Seeing this scene, Hantong's entire person was dumbstruck, not daring to believe his eyes. Not to mention him, everyone in the field was stunned. They had never seen the power of divine inscriptions before. They were stunned on the spot, their hearts full of shock. Even Qing Yu was stunned. Others did not recognize the power of divine inscriptions and mistakenly thought that it was Lin Ye's domain or some other power. But she recognized it. How is this possible? Divine inscriptions aren't the cultivation methods of the people of Sky Market World. How can Lin Yi possibly display it? Qing Yu's mouth was slightly agape as she suddenly recalled what Lin Yi had said earlier. She was completely astonished. When she looked at Lin Yi again, her gaze was extremely strange. If it was said that Qing Yu still wanted to compete with Lin Yi previously, following this period of contact, Qing Yu already lost this thought. Lin Ye's performance was seriously too dazzling, making her feel ashamed of her inferiority. Damn it! I don't believe that a mere invincible saint can overturn the heavens. Shaking his head violently, Hantong reacted. Raising both hands, a scepter appeared, flickering with lightning light. Ah, lightning god scepter! Lightning raging prison! Amidst the hoarse roar, endless lightning burst out from within the scepter, turning into a giant dragon, roaring and charging toward Lin Yi. Too weak. With a sigh, Lin Ye's heart moved slightly, and countless divine inscriptions appeared on the surface of his body. Divine power, demon destruction, petrification, demon exorcism, and other enhancement divine inscriptions erupted at the same time. In an instant, Lin Yi only felt that his right hand was filled with violent power, like a volcano that was about to erupt. Taking a deep breath, Lin Ye's figure rushed forward. Facing the violent lightning dragon's attack, he actually did not dodge or evade. Under the extremely shocked gazes of the spectators, he crashed into it with a loud bang. End of chapter. Chapter 744. Boom! His right fist glowed with the light of the divine runes as it collided with the dark blue lightning dragon. In the next moment, a violent energy rippled out from the center of the collision. The strong wind howled as the entire Mu family was swept up by the violent wind. Almost instantly, the onlookers, including the people from the animal battle arena and Qing Yu, were sent flying. They could only feel the turbulence in their bodies. What a powerful energy! Feeling that violent energy, the surrounding crowd felt a lingering fear in their hearts, and their expressions changed drastically. Bang! A loud sound was heard again. A figure flew out from the center of the impact and landed heavily on the ground, causing dust to splatter. The sound of people sucking in cold air continuously rang out. The surrounding crowd focused their attention, and their expressions were incomparably strange. Although Lin Ye's cultivation level was very low, they had a premonition that the person who was sent flying was most likely from the Thunderclap sect. As the dust settled, the figure quietly appeared before the onlookers. As expected, the person whose clothes were torn and who was lying on the ground was Hantong. The onlookers slowly lifted their heads and saw Lin Yi floating in the air with the divine runes around him. He was like a deity as he looked coldly at Hantong. Seeing that Hantong had completely lost his ability to resist, Lin Yi nodded slightly. He was satisfied with the power of the divine runes. Although the power of a single divine inscription wasn't very strong, when dozens or even hundreds of divine inscriptions were used together, the power of the divine inscriptions was shocking. Lin Yi was confident that with the power of the divine runes, divine thought power, and saint power, even if he encountered the genius disciples of the four major sects in the four major regions, he would not be too weak. Rumble. Dazzling saber dance. Suddenly, there was a sharp cry in the sky. Looking up, there were hundreds of icy blue saber chi dancing wildly like dancing snowflakes. It was extremely beautiful. However, within the beauty, there was a strong murderous intent. Bang! A figure flew out heavily. His clothes were torn, and his skin was cut by the saber chi. Blood flowed out, and in an instant, he was covered in blood. How is this possible? Seeing this scene, Mu Zheng, Mu Tian, and the others were stunned. They were originally excited that the people from the Thunderclap sect had come, so they would not be in any danger. Who would have thought that the two invincible great sage of the Thunderclap sect would be defeated in such a miserable manner? For a moment, Mu Zheng, Mu Tian, and the others staggered back a few steps, ready to escape at any moment. Mu Zheng felt extremely bitter in his heart. If he had known that Lin Yi and Shen Qingyun were so abnormal and could actually fight across realms, he would have rather handed over those saint stones. Although 900,000 saint stones wasn't a small sum, it was nothing to them. Senior sister, what should we do with these two fellows? Lin yawned and put away the divine runes that were hovering around him. Shen Qingyun slowly descended from the sky. Her face was calm, and there was not even a single drop of sweat on her forehead. Seeing this scene, the crowd couldn't help but be shocked. Defeating two invincible great sage was already shocking enough. What shocked them even more was that Lin Yi and Shen Qingyun did not even break out in a sweat. Their faces were calm, as if they had not unleashed their full strength. Gulp, how terrifying. Who are they? The sound of people swallowing their saliva could be heard. The crowd kept guessing the identities of Lin Yi and Shen Qingyun. In their minds, even the geniuses of the four major domains would not have such combat strength. Oh, Shen Qingyun put away her long sword and glanced at the two from the Thunderclap sect. Her eyes suddenly flashed with a cunning look. These two fellows don't know what's going on. How dare they help others? Since they want to help others so much, let's chop off their hands. Let's see if they still dare to not distinguish right from wrong in the future. All right. As soon as he finished speaking, Lin Yi raised his right hand. Blazing flames appeared, and the sky sword 12 styles exploded. One sword light chills 19 states. In a flash, a sharp sword chi suddenly appeared from within the blazing flames. At the same time, many divine runes rippled and mixed with the sword chi. In an instant, they swept past the right hands of the two from the Thunderclap sect. Mournful cries rang out. The intense pain caused the two people who were still unconscious to wake up. When they looked down, their faces turned pale and they were filled with regret. If they had known, they would not have helped Mu Zheng. In the end, not only did they not reap any benefits, but their arms were also chopped off. Enduring the pain, the two from the Thunderclap sect clutched their broken arms and stared at Lin Yi and Shen Qingyun. Who are you? The two from the Thunderclap sect trembled and asked through gritted teeth. Shen Qingyun sneered. Just as she was about to answer, she was interrupted by Lin Yi. Shen Qingyun stuck out her tongue and quickly shut her mouth. She just remembered that she had come to the desolate god realm for the 5 spiritual gods relic. She could not rashly reveal her identity. Otherwise, there is no guarantee that the disciples of the other 3 factions would not attack them. You are not qualified to know who we are, Lin Yi said indifferently. The Mu family owes us holy stones, but you want to cover for them. Well, this is your punishment. Get lost. Since I'm in a good mood, I will not kill you. You win. Clenching their teeth, the 2 men from the Thunderclap sect glared viciously at Lin Yi. Soon after, they ignored everyone else as they swiftly turned around, transformed into thunderbolts, and sped off into the distance. Junior brother Lin, it seems that they are not convinced. Shen Qingyun suddenly grinned and said, "Why don't you take some time to visit their sect? I remember that you seem to be practicing lightning-related cultivation techniques. Maybe you can find something useful in their sect. Forget it. It has nothing to do with them." Lin Yi shook his head and smiled. "If they are stubborn and want to go against us again, we will punish them. Well, next, it is time to collect the holy stones that I have won." The corners of Shun Qingyun's mouth curled up. With a flash, she appeared before Mu Zheng and Mu Tian. "You, don't come over." Suddenly seeing Shun Qingyun, Mu Tian's heart was filled with fear. She actually sat down on the ground with a face full of shock. Mu Tian did not expect that Shun Qingyun, who he just wanted to get to know, would have such terrifying strength. If he could go back in time, he definitely wouldn't try to get close to Shun Qingyun. "You don't have to be afraid. I am not an unreasonable person." Shun Qingyun revealed 2 small canine teeth and smiled brightly. "As long as you hand over the holy stones that you have lost to me, I will not attack you." "Okay, here are the holy stones." Hearing this, Mu Zheng heaved a sigh of relief and quickly threw out a storage ring. "There are 2 million holy stones and treasures worth 1 million holy stones in this ring. It should be enough for the bet." "Not enough? How can this be enough?" Shun Qingyun smiled. "You have owed me for so long. I should at least collect some interest." End of chapter. Chapter 745. Collect some interest? The corners of Mu Zheng and Mu Tian's mouths twitched violently. They owed you 900,000 saint stones. If they collected some interest, it would be more than 1,000,000 saint stones. They had already given you more than 3 million saint stones, and you were still not satisfied? Of course. Shun Qingyun tilted her head and looked at Mu Tian. "If I kill your precious son, I wonder if you will still have a son." Mu Zheng took a deep breath and did not dare to resist. He gritted his teeth and threw out a storage ring. "There are 5 million saint stones in this ring. There are also many cultivation techniques and treasures. They are definitely worth more than 2 million saint stones." Mu Zheng's heart was bleeding as he looked at the storage ring floating in the air. They only earned 20 million saint stones in a year. After deducting the family's operating expenses, they could only use less than 10 million saint stones. But now they had given it all away. "Oh, seeing that you're sincere in your apology, I will forgive you." After taking the storage ring, Shun Qingyun smiled with satisfaction. In fact, if Mu Tian and the rest had not cheated, Shun Qingyun would not have asked for more. She had 900,000 saint stones, so it was 900,000 saint stones. Although Sibu Gakuin was powerful, they would not bully others. But Mu Tian and the rest broke the rules first. Shun Qingyun naturally had to punish them. If Lin Yi was not around and she was not in a good mood, the Mu family would not exist anymore. "Oh yes, your son really used underhanded means." Lin Yi also landed and glanced at Mu Zheng. He said indifferently, "But that is between you and the animal fighting arena." After that, Lin Yi and Shun Qingyun looked at each other and turned to walk toward Qinyu. They walked out of the Mu family. "The 3 of you, please wait." Seeing this, Su Tianzheng hurriedly shouted. He wanted to stop Lin Yi and the rest. What kind of joke was this? To be able to have such talent, one could see the power behind them. If he could establish a connection with them, perhaps they would be able to soar. Therefore, Su Tianzheng did not want to miss this opportunity. However, Lin Yi and Shun Qingyun could not be bothered to waste time with them. Their figures flashed as they sped away. Although their cultivation levels were weak, their strength was not weak. Even Su Tianzheng was unable to catch up to them. He could only sigh and vent all his anger on Mu Zheng and Mu Tian. Outside the great desolation city, Lin Yi and the other 2 sat cross-legged on the ground. Countless treasures were scattered all over the ground. Hey, aren't they too weak? They actually have so few saint-ranked treasures. Most of them are materials that are useless to us. After flipping through for a while, Lin Yi and the others were disappointed. The items in the 2 storage rings were of no use to them other than exchanging them for holy stones. What should we do next? Lin Yi glanced at Shun Qingyun and asked, "Have you had enough fun?" "Next, we should look for the 5 spiritual god relics." Can we play for a while longer?" Shun Qingyun blinked and suddenly hugged Lin Ye's arm. She giggled and said, "I once heard from Sister Xuanji that there is an interesting place in the Cloud Sand City That place can increase the power of divine senses. Oh, increase the power of divine senses. Upon hearing this, Lin Yi and Qing Yu exclaimed in surprise. Qing Yu even ignored Shen Qingyun, who was holding Lin Ye's arm, and asked in a low voice, "Where is it? How much does it increase the power of divine senses?" "The divine senses heavenly steel." Shen Qingyun smiled and said, "According to Sister Xuanji, the divine senses heavenly steel is an independent space. There is an endless amount of divine senses in it. The longer one can stay in it, or the more space one can pass through, the greater the reward at the end of the trial." Previously, Sister Xuanji persevered for a day and a night. When she came out, her divine senses increased from level 60 to level 62. TSK. So terrifying? The corners of their mouths twitched. Lin Yi and Qing Yu looked at each other. They were both shocked, and their eyes were filled with desire. It was harder to increase the power of divine senses as one progressed. Ever since they reached level 60, their progress had stagnated and they could not make any further progress. Fairy Xuanji had only persevered for a day and a night, and she had already made such progress. Perhaps they could also give it a try. After all, the 5 spiritual gods' relics were fought over by the geniuses of the 4 major domains. Those geniuses were much stronger than the Great Sage at the peak and the Great Sage at the Invincible Realm. To put it bluntly, ordinary people, no matter how talented they were, would not be a match for the geniuses of the 4 major domains. The cultivation techniques and martial techniques they practiced were too low-level, and they could not unleash their full power. Therefore, although Lin Yi and the rest could easily defeat the ordinary Invincible Realm Great Sage, it was still very difficult for them to contend with the geniuses of the 4 major domains. Sister Xuanji said that the divine will heavenly steel is fun. I want to give it a try. Shen Qingyun looked at Lin Yi with her big watery eyes and asked, "Do you want to go?" "Okay, let's rest for a while. We'll go tomorrow." Looking up at the sky, it was already nighttime. Lin Yi was too lazy to hurry. "Okay." Upon hearing this, Shen Qingyun could not help but laugh. Suddenly, she seemed to have thought of something. She quickly patted Lin Ye's shoulder and asked, "Junior brother Lin, I saw a small tiger with wings suddenly appear on your shoulder, but it disappeared after that. What was that?" "I was dealing with other things at that time, and I almost forgot about it." "What was that?" "I thought it would be fun." Fun? Upon hearing this, Lin Yi could not help but twitch the corners of his mouth. How could the auspicious sign of a mainland become something fun in your mouth? Lin Yi rolled his eyes and hesitated for a moment. In the end, he decided not to hide it from Shen Qingyun. With a slight thought, he summoned the auspicious sign. Awu! As soon as the auspicious sign appeared, it roared. Then, it glanced at Shen Qingyun and Qing Wei and blinked its eyes. "Wow, what a cute little tiger." Shen Qingyun's eyes lit up, and she grabbed the auspicious sign with both her hands. Meow. However, before Shen Qingyun could grab the auspicious sign meowed and pounced into Shen Qingyun's arms. Coincidentally, it landed on a ball of softness. He. Shen Qingyun instantly laughed and stroked the auspicious sign. She was elated. The auspicious sign laid on Shen Qingyun's chest. It retracted its wings and rested its paws on Shen Qingyun's chest. Upon seeing this, Lin Yi could not help but twitch the corners of his mouth. "Is this your pet with intelligence? What's its name?" After stroking the auspicious sign for a while, Shen Qingyun asked. "Yes, it's a strange cat." Lin Yi grinned and said, "It's not a little tiger, but a cat." "A cat with wings?" Blinking her eyes, Shen Qingyun was also very surprised. She had seen many forms of tigers, but it was the first time she saw an ordinary cat with wings. However, Shen Qingyun's attention was quickly diverted. "What did you call it?" "A strange cat." "It's so cute. How could you treat it like this?" End of chapter. Chapter 746. Perhaps because the cat was too cute, Shen Qingyun was quite friendly to it. Not only did she seek justice for it, She even gave it a name, Xiao Shui. This made the corner of Lin Ye's mouth twitch. If he wasn't mistaken, this strange cat was a male. Being called Xiao Shui, no matter how he looked at it, it was very strange. Even the strange cat waved its claws in protest when it heard that name. However, Shun Qingyun didn't understand the cat's meaning. She immediately decided on the name. After confirming the name, the cat suddenly lost its spirit. Its ears drooped, and it looked at Lin Yi pitifully. However, Lin Yi acted as if he didn't see it and let Shun Qingyun play with Xiao Shui. Xiao Shui was in complete despair. "All right." After a long while, Shun Qingyun suddenly asked, "This cat can't be the egg we got earlier, right? You're so smart?" Lin Yi smiled and said, "Yes, that egg hatched. It can't be." This time around, it wasn't just Shun Qingyun. Even Qingyue was astonished. She exclaimed, "I remember that the egg was obtained from the Thunder Windchaser tiger's stomach. Shouldn't it be a baby tiger? How did it become a cat? It might be a mutation." Lin Yi laughed bitterly. "I'm also puzzled, but it's really a cat. However, it can't be considered cat. It can only be considered a new type of mutated demon beast." "How's its strength?" Lin Yi shrugged. "I haven't tested it, but it doesn't look too weak. With my current strength, a spiritual pet won't be of much use. Hee, it's fine as long as it's cute." Shen Qingyun chuckled and immediately pinched Xiao Shui's skin again. Lin Yi couldn't be bothered to care about Xiao Shui. He looked at it in despair, but he could feel that Xiao Shui was very happy in its heart. Lin Yi didn't recall Xiao Shui and let Shen Qingyun bully Xiao Shui. The divine rune appeared and sealed the space around the three of them. Lin Yi sat cross-legged and began to recover his divine will. Although he had already successfully cultivated the divine inscriptions, he still had to expand his spiritual sense to use them. The next day, after a night of cultivation, Lin Yi and Shun Qingyun both recovered to their peak condition. After resting for a while, Shun Qingyun led Lin Yi and Qingyue to the Cloud Sand City. The divine heavenly steel that could increase one's divine was very attractive to Lin Yi and Qingyu. In Qingyun, Qingyue, Qingyue, and Qingyue, Qingyun, and Qingyun. However, Lin Yi sensed that the people in the Cloud Sand City were much stronger than those in the Great Barren City. Many people in the Great Sage Realm were walking on the streets. "These people are all here for the divine heavenly steel?" Lin Yi was surprised. It seemed that the divine heavenly steel's effect was extraordinary to be able to attract so many people. "Of course." Shen Qingyun grinned and said, "The people from the other 4 regions shouldn't be here yet. Otherwise, there would be a lot of people here. Hee, the 4 forces have an agreement. Under normal circumstances, we can't casually fight. Sometimes we rely on these things to determine the winner. I still remember that 5 years ago, Sister Xianji defeated the geniuses from the other forces and won first place. It's a pity that she was 3rd on the overall ranking. She didn't surpass the 2 freaks from the Holy Moon Divine Sect and the Divine Sky Sect." At this point, Shen Qingyun glanced at Lin Yi and smiled. "Junior brother Lin, you have to work hard and get first place on the divine heavenly steel. You think too highly of me," Lin Yi said modestly. "This is my first time here. How can I surpass those people in one go?" Actually, the reason why I brought you here is to experience the divine heavenly steel." Shun Qingyun stuck out her tongue and said with a chuckle, "The divine heavenly steel can only be entered twice every 10 years. Under normal circumstances, everyone will gather here after most of the people have arrived. At the same time, the 4 forces will compete. You can experience it first. Then, when the competition starts, you will have an advantage. So that's what you're thinking." The corner of Lin Ye's mouth twitched as he glanced at Shen Qingyun. "Phew, this means that after some time, when the people from the 4 forces arrive, everyone will gather in the Cloud Sand City?" "That's right." Shen Qingyun nodded. "Even if it's not in the Cloud Sand City, it will be near here. After experiencing the divine heavenly steel, let's move around here. Let's look for the 5 spiritual god relics and see if we can find anything interesting." Lin Yi rubbed his nose and said softly, "If we are too far away, we might not even know when the 5 spiritual god relics are opened. Okay, since it was related to the 5 spiritual god relics, Shen Qingyun didn't say much and agreed immediately. As they spoke, Lin Yi and the rest arrived at a big road. A huge stone stele entered the eyes of Lin Yi and the rest. Lin Yi and the rest shuddered as they involuntarily stopped in their tracks. Shaking his head, Lin Yi frowned as he looked at the huge stone stele and asked, "Is that the divine will heavenly stele?" As far as the eye could see, dozens of figures could be seen slowly walking towards the stone stele. Turning his head, he saw that Qin Yu's eyes were blurred and she seemed to have yet to wake up. Shen Qingyun patted Qin Yu and said to Lin Yi, "That's right, this is the divine will heavenly stele. Phew, if you're not strong enough, you won't even be able to enter the divine will heavenly stele." Hiss, feeling the divine will pressure that filled the road, Lin Yi was curious. Before he walked on the road, he didn't feel any divine will pressure. This showed how powerful the divine will pressure was to be able to control its power so exquisitely. Qin Yu woke up quickly and looked at the divine will heavenly stele with a burning gaze. Her talent wasn't weak, and she could naturally feel the divine will power. Hee, if that's all, it can't stop me. Curling his lips, Lin Yi's shoulders shook as he took a step forward and rushed towards the divine will heavenly stele. Releasing the divine will power in his body, the pressure didn't cause any hindrance to Lin Yi. In just a few breaths, Lin Yi overtook the people in front of him and walked to the divine will heavenly stele. Seeing this scene, the corners of Shen Qingyun's mouth curled up, revealing a smile. "Xiao Shui, let's go." Pinching Xiao Shui's chubby face, Shen Qingyun released her saber intent and cut the divine will power apart. She also walked towards the divine will heavenly stele. Lin Yi looked at Shen Qingyun and couldn't help but raise his eyebrows. Even he could feel the sharpness of the saber intent. As soon as they arrived at the stone tablet, Lin Yi was just about to receive Shen Qingyun when a figure flashed in front of him like a bolt of lightning. "Junior sister Shan, I guessed right. You're here." End of chapter. Chapter 747. Junior sister Shan, I guessed right. You'll come here. With a chuckle, a figure passed by Lin Yi and landed in front of Shen Qingyun. Raising his eyebrows, Lin Yi suddenly stopped and looked up. He saw a young man in blue holding a bright red flower in his hand and offering it to Shen Qingyun. In a split second, Lin Yi's expression was very strange. What a joke. In the inner yard, Shen Qingyun was a little witch. How could there be someone who liked her? "You." Shen Qingyun blinked and looked at the young man in blue. "Hee, junior sister Shan, this is the blood soul flower. It can enhance the power of blood and strengthen the body." The young man in blue happily handed the bright red flower to Shen Qingyun and said shyly, "I see that you use a long knife. You should need this kind of sacred medicine." May I ask who you are?" Shen Qingyun stuck out her tongue and said, "Sorry, I don't know you. I can't take your things." Crack! A crisp sound suddenly sounded, and the young man in blue's face gradually froze. Lin Yi's mouth couldn't help but twitch. Although he couldn't see the young man in blue, he could imagine his face. The person he liked and pursued didn't know him. How sad would that be? Shen Qingyun smiled faintly and walked past the blue-clothed youth to stand in front of Lin Yi. Lin Yi glanced at Shen Qingyun, but his eyelids suddenly jumped. Shen Qingyun almost couldn't hold back the smile on her face. Lin Yi immediately realized that Shen Qingyun did it on purpose. She knew the young man in blue and said it deliberately. "This girl is really naughty." Shaking his head with a bitter smile, Lin Yi thought, "She's indeed the little witch of the inner yard." However, it could be seen that Shen Qingyun didn't have any feelings for the young man in blue. Otherwise, she wouldn't have done it. Cough, cough. After a long time, the blue-clothed youth coughed awkwardly and sighed. He turned to look at Shen Qingyun and said, "Junior sister Shen, you really know how to joke. Are you kidding me? I, Lan Yeheo, am one of the 13 candidates for the position of palace leader. Even in the entire inner domain, I am considered one of the top disciples. How could Shen Qingyun not know him? Lan Yeheo stared at Lin Yi, who was standing beside Shen Qingyun, and a sense of crisis suddenly emerged in his heart. He quickly said, "Junior sister, who is this little brother? Why haven't I seen him before?" "Hello, senior." Lin Yi chuckled and said, "I'm a disciple of the outer yard, and I happen to be allowed to participate in the Five Spirits God Relic this time." "I see." Lan Yeheo nodded slightly, but his heart was still filled with a sense of crisis. He always felt that the relationship between Lin Yi and Shen Qingyun was unusual. However, on second thought, Shen Qingyun was already in the Great Sage realm, and her strength was comparable to the invincible Great Sage. It was impossible for her to be interested in an outer yard disciple. Only then did he heave a sigh of relief. "Hello, senior." All of a sudden, another crisp voice rang out. Lan Yeheo's expression changed slightly. He turned around, and after seeing Qingwei, his expression changed slightly. This junior sister is also from the outer yard." Lan Yeheo frowned slightly and suddenly exclaimed, "What's going on? Both of you are only sages. Why did the elders allow you to come out?" Although Lan Yeheo and the others weren't in the academy previously, the elders had already informed them of the purpose of this trip. They all understood the danger of this trip. Therefore, when they saw Lin Yi and Qingwei from the outer yard, they were extremely surprised. Anyway, the elders allowed them to come. Shen Qingyun blinked and asked, "Senior Lan, what are you waiting for here for? If you're just here to give me herbs, then forget it." "Cough, cough," Lan Yeheo said awkwardly. "I wanted to improve my divine will. I happened to find the blood soul flower on the way, so I thought of bringing it over for you." "Thank you, senior. However, I've been cultivating with Elder Theta Scarbii for a period of time, and my physique is already at its limit. This type of sacred medicine is useless to me. Therefore, I can't accept it." Shen Qingyun smiled and rejected Lan Yeheo. The corner of Lan Yeheo's mouth twitched. He could only sigh and say, "All right then. Hee, junior brother Lin, let's go play in the divine will sky steal." Shen Qingyun carried Little Snow in one hand and held Lin Yi in the other as they walked towards the divine will sky steal. "Me?" Seeing this, Lan Yeheo was stunned. He looked at the backs of Lin Yi and Shen Qingyun in shock. He had just let go of his guard against Lin Yi, but Shen Qingyun had slapped him in the face. Sigh. Sensing the change in Lan Yeheo's expression, Qin Yu sighed and followed them again. Looking at Lin Yi and Shen Qingyun, Qin Yu couldn't help but curse them in her heart. The closer they got to the divine will sky steal, the stronger the divine will pressure. Even she had to walk slowly. Unexpectedly, Lin Yi and Shen Qingyun weren't restrained at all. The divine will sky steal towered into the clouds. In front of the steel, there was a 3-foot-tall stone wall with many names carved on it. "Junior brother Lin, this is the divine will sky steal. Sister Xuanji is in 3rd place." Shen Qingyun pointed at the divine will sky steal and said, "You can only enter this steal if you can last for 10 hours or pass 10 stages. The requirements are so high." Lin Yi frowned and looked around. He was surprised to find that there were hundreds of names on the steal. This made him extremely shocked. 5 years ago, Fairy Xuanji had been able to fight her way into the top 3. This showed just how powerful she was. Fairy Xuanji's current strength might not be weaker than a heavenly sage realm elder. 5 years ago, her divine will power was at level 62. Her current strength was at least level 64. Perhaps she had already reached level 65. The name in 2nd place was a woman, Helian Yuyan. Lin Yi was speechless. Could it be that among the geniuses of the 4 major domains, there were only women who stood out? Luckily, the 1st place was a man named Yun Feng. For some reason, Lin Yi felt a special fluctuation in his heart when he saw Yun Feng's name. When there are enough people, you can enter the divine will sky steal. Seeing that Lin Yi had finished looking at the steal, Shen Qingyun pulled Lin Yi to the side and sat down on a few futons at the front. Lin Yi looked around and realized that there were dozens of futons around. Each futon was shining brightly. At that moment, there were already many people sitting on the futons cultivating. Lan Yeheo walked over and sat beside Lin Yi. He said softly, "When there are enough people here, the divine sky steel will activate and send you in. After the end of the trial, you will be rewarded according to your ranking. The higher your ranking, the better your reward." Legend has it that Yun Feng, the first person on the divine sky steel, broke through from level 61 to level 65 after the trial. It was terrifying. In a chapter. Chapter 748. Lin Ye's mouth twitched as he looked at Shun Qingyun in shock. In the blink of an eye, she had broken through from level 61 to level 65. How heaven-defying was that? Sensing Lin Ye's shock and disbelief, Shun Qingyun nodded slightly and said in a low voice, "That's true. That rumored Yun Feng can be said to be abnormal to the extreme. I wonder if he's as strong in reality. But luckily, he's 10 years away from us. I'm afraid he's already a heavenly saint or absolute saint. He won't be with us." Hiss. If the rumors are true, then his talent is really amazing. Nodding slightly, Lin Yi couldn't help but be curious about Yun Feng. "Junior brother, if it's your first time entering the divine, heavenly steel, just familiarize yourself with it. After a while, when everyone else is here, you can go in for the second time," Lan Yeheo reminded. "Thank you, senior." Lin Yi smiled. As the saying goes, one doesn't hit a smiling person. Lan Yeheo was polite to him, so he couldn't say anything. "That's right, senior sister Shun, you didn't cultivate spiritual force, but you were able to enter?" Glancing at Shun Qingyun and seeing that she was still sitting on the futon, Lin Yi couldn't help but be curious. "Of course I can, but there's no reward and it's not on the list." Shun Qingyun smiled and said, "I'm here to play. The trials inside are strange, and there are endless possibilities." Hearing this, Lin Ye's expression became strange. Lan Yeheo looked at Shun Qingyun in a daze. Realizing this, Lin Yi couldn't help but mourn for him. Hoping to sleep with a witch was pitiful enough. Hoping to sleep with a witch who didn't like him was even more despairing. If Lin Yi didn't have a suitable identity, he would have reminded Lan Yeheo to give up. From time to time, there were people who endured the divine heavenly steel. Not long after, the futon was filled with people. Buzz. An invisible fluctuation quietly spread out and suddenly enveloped Lin Yi and the others. Lan Yeheo whispered, "It's here. The two of you be careful. The spiritual sky steel's test is quite difficult. Junior sister Shun, you have to be careful as well. If you encounter difficulties, you could just give up." "All right, I got it." Shun Qingyun rolled her eyes at Lan Yeheo and threw little snow to Lin Yi. She lightly smiled and said, "Junior apprentice brother Lin, take him with you. Maybe he can help you." After that, Shun Qingyun narrowed her eyes and waited for the test to begin. Crack! The crisp sound rang out again. Lan Yeheo almost spat out a mouthful of blood. His fragile heart of a young man was completely shattered. He asked Shun Qingyun out of kindness, but Shun Qingyun cared so much about Lin Yi, which made him jealous. A person who fell into jealousy was the devil, and a man who fell into jealousy was the devil of all devils. Seeing that Shun Qingyun closed her eyes, Lan Yeheo suddenly grabbed Lin Ye's hand. Feeling his wrist being grabbed, Lin Yi looked at Lan Yeheo curiously, only to see his eyes burning with passion. Suddenly, Lin Yi panicked. He quickly said, "Senior Lan, what are you doing? Even if senior sister Shin rejected you, you can't do anything to me." Puffed. The corner of Lan Yeheo's mouth twitched. He gritted his teeth and said, "What are you thinking? I'm not interested in you." "Phew, that's good." Lin Yi let out a long sigh of relief. "You suddenly grabbed me. Of course I would be nervous." Lan Yeheo took a deep breath and said in a low voice, "Kid, what's your relationship with junior sister Shan?" "Friends." Lin Yi blinked. "Like hell I'll believe you. You're such a bad old man. You're not telling the truth." Lan Yeheo gritted his teeth. He wanted to bite Lin Yi to death. What kind of joke was this? Ordinary friends could hold hands. Why would Shin Yun care so much about him? Lin Yi said gloomily, I'm still young, senior brother. Senior sister Shun and I are really just friends. If you're just friends, then do you dare to make a bet with me? Lan Yeheo's eyes flashed as he stared at Lin Yi. Bet? What bet? Lin Yi suddenly had an ominous feeling. Indeed, outside of the school, beauties were trouble. If Shun Yun and Lin Yi were really lovers, then it would be fine. However, they were really just friends. Now, Lin Yi had to take the blame. Let's bet on this time's spiritual will sky steal. Let's see whose ranking is higher. If my ranking is high, then stay away from junior sister Shun in the future. Lan Yeheo gritted his teeth and said with a red face, If your ranking is high, then I won't care about you. Lin Yi's expression gradually froze. He said in a low voice, I'm sorry, senior brother. I can't agree to this bet. Are you scared? Lan Yeheo sneered, try to provoke him. No. Lin Yi shook his head and said, Senior sister Shun is my friend. She's not a bet. If you want to bet on something else, I'll keep you company. If it's this, then please forgive me for not being able to comply. After saying that, Lin Yi closed his eyes slightly. Lan Yeheo's body trembled violently as he stood rooted to the ground. His face was full of shame. However, Lin Yi and Lan Yeheo did not notice that Shun Yun, who had closed her eyes, had secretly curled her lips and revealed a smile. After a long while, Lan Yeheo pulled Lin Yi again and said in a low voice, Let's not talk about the bet first. Anyway, it has nothing to do with junior sister Shun. Do you dare to bet with me? To be honest, I'm quite impressed by you. However, I still want to see how strong you are. Oh, hearing that, Lin Yi stared at Lan Yeheo. Seeing that his eyes were pure, he nodded and agreed. He smiled and said, I'm happy to spar with senior brother. The spiritual will sky steel trial is about to begin. I'm looking forward to your performance. The corners of Lan Yeheo's mouth curled up. He closed his eyes and waited for the spiritual will sky steel to open. After chatting with Lin Yi for a while, he was able to solve several problems in his heart. He had a premonition that the spiritual will sky steel this time contained a great opportunity. Buzz, buzz, buzz. A strong spiritual will rippled. In the next moment, Lin Yi and the rest disappeared with a swoosh. In the entire space, there were only a few shining futons left. The sky and earth were spinning. Lin Yi only felt an excruciating pain in his head. When he woke up, he was already in a green forest. This is shaking his head violently. Lin Yi looked around and could not help but be surprised. This is an illusion? No, this is a test of spiritual will. It shouldn't be an illusion. Frowning slightly, Lin Yi lifted his head and looked around. However, he was surprised to find that there was no exit in this area. As far as the eye could see, no matter which direction it was, there was an endless stretch of trees. Even the sky was formed by the leaves of the trees. Lin Yi was actually surrounded by trees. End of chapter. Chapter 749. What the hell is going on now? Frowning, Lin Yi was flabbergasted. Could it be that this stage required him to escape from this place? Walala. At this moment, a crisp sound rang out. Lin Yi looked up and saw that the lush green trees in the sky had extended countless branches and were trying to bind him. Not only in the air, but under his feet and around him, all the vines and branches were like flying snakes, rapidly rushing towards Lin Yi, trying to bind him. What's going on? His pupils shrank. Lin Yi was caught off guard and was directly bound by the numerous branches. In the next moment, the branches contracted tightly, tearing apart Lin Yi's body. They sank deep into his flesh, and blood continuously seeped out. Intense pain, like a tidal wave, constantly attacked Lin Yi's nerves. Damn it! Why are these branches so strong? Frowning, Lin Yi gritted his teeth. Divine runes appeared and instantly turned into flames, burning the branches that were binding him. Beep, beep, beep. The flames burned fiercely. In just a few breaths of time, the branches were already burning. However, they did not stop. They continued to bind Lin Yi tightly. As time passed, their power grew stronger and stronger. They even sank deep into Lin Ye's body. Noticing this, Lin Ye's expression changed drastically. If he allowed those branches to sink into his body, he would be finished. His bones, his meridians, and even his bones would collapse. Taking a deep breath, Lin Ye's shoulders shook and he activated the Annihilation Divine Dragon Transformation. Roar! A loud dragon roar sounded. Lin Ye's body suddenly became much stronger. Those branches could no longer sink in and were stuck there. Immediately, the sky was filled with flames, burning the surrounding branches into a sea of fire. However, no matter how fierce the flames were, those branches did not break. In fact, even more branches wrapped around Lin Yi and surrounded him. After a dozen breaths, Lin Yi had become a person of branches. His entire body was wrapped in branches. The power of countless branches stacked together. Even though Lin Ye's body was strengthened by the Annihilation Divine Dragon Transformation and the power of the Divine Runes, it still began to crack. He could not withstand it all. After all, it was the combination of countless branches. No, I have to cut these branches. Gritting his teeth, Lin Ye's sword domain appeared. Endless sword chi and sword intent gathered and condensed into transparent small swords that filled the sky. Immediately, they whistled out and continuously slashed those branches. Since the flames can't burn you, I'll cut you with sharp sword chi. Puchi, puchi, sharp sword chi slashed the branches of the branches. The branches that had been burned by the flames were once again slashed by the sword chi. Instantly, countless cracks appeared. However, even so, they did not break. The power contained within them grew stronger and stronger, binding Lin Yi bitterly. Damn it, how can this be? Frowning, Lin Yi could not help but feel hopeless. Flames, divine telekinesis, divine runes, and even the sword domain were all useless. How can I pass this test? That's right. This is the test of the divine will heavenly steel. In other words, there is no physical body. It is purely a test of divine will. These are all fake. Since I can't stop them, is this a test of my willpower? Thinking of this, Lin Yi took a deep breath and decided not to resist. The Annihilation Divine Dragon Transformation dissipated, the flames dissipated, and the sword domain collapsed. In an instant, countless branches increased their strength and bound Lin Yi, sinking into his flesh. An intense pain crazily attacked Lin Yi. Even though he had experienced countless hardships, his eyebrows were tightly knitted together. Crack! Crack! The crisp sound continued to ring. Lin Yi could clearly feel that his bones were breaking. However, his expression did not change. There was only one thought in his mind. I can endure this. I will not die. This level of pain is not enough to make me. Lin Yi, submit. With this thought in mind, the branches continued to exert more strength. However, Lin Yi gradually felt no pain. After a while, Lin Yi felt a cool aura. Looking down, he saw that the branches that were binding him had turned into countless emerald green life force and flowed into his body. In an instant, the power in Lin Ye's body, whether it was saint energy, divine runes, or divine will, all of them were greatly enhanced. This, my physical body, seems to be real. The corners of Lin Ye's mouth twitched. It was only now that he discovered that in this mysterious space, his mortal body actually existed. This meant that if something happened to his physical body, it would not be healed when he got out. This made him scared. If he did not hold back just now, he would be finished. Fortunately, he made it through. Not only was he not injured, but his body was also strengthened. Buzz, buzz, buzz. After all the life force entered Lin Ye's body, the surrounding scenery gradually changed. After 2 breaths of time, Lin Yi was already on top of a lone peak. The peak was very steep. There was only one person standing on it. If another person came, it might collapse and fall. Hiss, what kind of test is this? Touching his nose, Lin Yi was very surprised. What was the test for this stage? Lin Yi was sure that if he fell, he would have reached the end of this test. Looking down, the peak was so tall that it reached the clouds. At a glance, he could only see the vast clouds. It was extremely horrifying. Screech! A crisp sound rang, followed by the sound of wings flapping. Suddenly hearing this sound, Lin Ye's expression changed. He suddenly had an ominous premonition in his heart. Lifting his head to look, Lin Ye's face was deathly pale, and he almost could not hold back cursing, only to see that several hundred majestic goshawks were currently attacking Lin Yi with extreme speed. Sharp eagle claws flickered with a cold light, making people tremble in fear. The goshawk's claws were full of strength. Once Lin Yi was caught and knocked, he would fall off the peak uncontrollably. What a ruthless test! Gritting his teeth, Lin Yi did not dare to hold back anymore. His mind moved slightly, his right hand sketched divine marks, and his left hand punched out. The Heavenly Emperor fist erupted with a powerful force, stirring up a stream of air that surged out, but it slowed down those goshawks' flying speed considerably. In the next moment, many divine marks condensed and formed, erupting with a strange power. Gravity, slow, space restriction, seal, curse, and other divine marks erupted one after another. In an instant, the sky full of goshawks lost the power to fly. Amidst the screeching, they flapped their wings helplessly and fell into the bottomless abyss. End of chapter. Chapter 750. Ha ha ha. Seeing this scene, Lin Yi suddenly laughed out loud. If he didn't know about the divine veins, it might have been difficult for him to pass this test. However, the effect of the divine veins allowed him to pass through safely. After the first wave of goshawks ended, it was quiet for 15 minutes, as if to give Lin Yi time to rest. After 15 minutes, the screeching sound was heard again. This time, it wasn't goshawks, but a group of giant snakes with wings. The giant python's body is very strong. Even if it doesn't hit anyone, it might hit the peak and I'll fall. This test is really scary. The corners of Lin Ye's mouth twitched. He couldn't help but curse under his breath. These tests were really too difficult. If one wanted to pass through, they would need to have special abilities or extremely strong spiritual sense to directly crush them. Then, one had to have willpower. Fortunately, Lin Ye's divine veins made a huge contribution in this test. So what if it was a giant python that could fly? Before it could even get close to Lin Yi, it was sent into the endless abyss by the divine veins. After the giant python, it was the flying dragon and the phoenix. The time interval also increased. It was clear that this test was still giving people a way out. As the last fire phoenix fell into the endless abyss, the peak under Lin Ye's feet shook and turned into a yellow light that surged into Lin Ye's body. A special force quietly took root and sprouted in Lin Ye's body. This force seems to have something to do with the toughness of the earth. Frowning, Lin Yi was curious. Could it be that the benefits of this test were also related to the 5 elements? But Shen Xingyan had said that Fairy Xuanji had passed 10 tests. If the 5 elements were the main factor, there couldn't be so many tests. Forget it. I'll know when I continue. Pursing his lips, Lin Yi waited for the yellow light to enter his body and the peak to dissipate. He was already on a plane. There wasn't much difficulty in this stage. It was just an endless amount of beasts and monsters attacking the forest without any pause. However, it was still useless against Lin Yi. An hour later, the demonic beast's strength had risen to the invincible saint realm. Lin Yi immediately unleashed all of his power. Divine inscriptions and divine consciousness erupted at the same time. The demonic beasts that filled the sky were turned into nothingness before they could even let out a miserable shriek. The plane dissipated once again. This time, an invisible force surged into Lin Ye's body, strengthening his divine sense. This stage could be said to be difficult, but it could also be said to be simple. If you had the ability to fight across realms, it would naturally be simple because the highest level of demonic beasts would be the same as you. If you didn't have the ability to fight across realms, even if you weren't beaten to death, you would be exhausted to death. However, Lin Ye's true strength far exceeded his cultivation level, which was why he was so relaxed. 5 breaths later, an endless blue light appeared and suddenly wrapped Lin Yi up. At the same time, the water surged. Looking around, Lin Yi was already in the deep sea. Buzz, buzz, swoosh. The water surged, and the strong water pressure immediately fixed Lin Yi in an area. In the next moment, many piranhas revealed their sharp teeth and pounced on Lin Yi. Hee, defense is my forte. The corners of Lin Yi's mouth curled up. He was not worried at all. With a slight thought, he outlined the divine inscriptions again. Seal, slow, space, gravity, and other divine inscriptions appeared. The endless piranhas were trapped and unable to move. They could only squeeze together and get stuck. In just a dozen breaths, the piranhas had piled up into a mountain. They were all stuck in the pile, constantly rubbing their teeth and showing off to Lin Yi. Tisk, these trials seem a little too simple. Shrugging his shoulders, Lin Yi could not help but sigh softly. It seemed that he would have the opportunity to directly enter the divine will Sky Steel in the first trial. With such a huge increase in ranking, he wondered how much his divine will power would increase. However, just as Lin Yi was fantasizing about increasing his divine will power, an invisible force quietly rippled out from the sea. Buzz! The strange force rippled out, and in the next moment, the divine inscriptions in front of Lin Yi disappeared with a bang. Boom! 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 Without the suppression of the divine inscriptions, the piranhas suddenly surged and rushed towards Lin Yi. Their sharp teeth shone with a cold light. With a cry of surprise, Lin Yi did not dare to hesitate. He released his divine will power and instantly turned it into a water screen, enveloping him. Bang! Bang! In the next moment, countless piranhas crashed into the water screen. Even with Lin Yi's strong divine will power, many cracks appeared on the water screen. Explode. With a slight change of expression, Lin Yi waved his hands, and the divine will power instantly turned into the lightning attribute, releasing a bright light. Boom! 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 The berserk power exploded and instantly sent all the piranhas flying away. However, a moment later, an endless number of piranhas rushed over. Frowning slightly, Lin Yi drew the divine inscriptions again. The divine inscriptions were quickly drawn, but what surprised Lin Yi was that there was no power in it. TSK. Could it be that the divine will Sky Steel sensed that the method was too crazy and removed the divine inscriptions? The corner of Lin Yi's mouth twitched, and he could not help but feel puzzled. Without the power of the divine inscriptions, it would take a lot more time to pass these trials. This round should be testing my defense. Taking a deep breath, Lin Yi waved his hands lightly, and the divine will power turned into a water screen again, protecting him. Being in the sea, only by turning the divine will power into water could he borrow the power of the water to strengthen the defense of his divine will power. Bang! 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 Not long after, countless piranhas rushed over and continuously hit the water screen. When there were only a few of them, the piranhas could not cause any damage to the water screen. When there were more of them, Lin Yi changed the attribute again and exploded with the power of thunder, blowing them all away. After tossing and turning a few times, the strength of the piranhas also gradually increased. Lin Yi, on the other hand, started to think seriously. He analyzed the difficulties of the previous rounds after removing the divine inscriptions, trying to understand the routines of these trials. In the first round, he did not use any of the 3 powers. Very obviously, it was testing his firm mind. In the second round, he was on a lonely peak and had to avoid the attacks of the birds. If there were no divine inscriptions, Lin Yi would have to use the divine will power to accurately push away the birds that came close to him and prevent himself from being hit. In other words, he had to have precise control of the divine will power. As everyone knew, the divine will power had a wide range of targets. In many cases, it was impossible to determine the target. However, if he mastered this method, not only would the target be more accurate, the power that was condensed together would also be stronger. The third round did not have anything fancy. It was testing the attacking power of the divine will. The fourth round was about defense. End of chapter. Chapter 751. Willpower, divine telekinesis, precise control, attack, defense. These trials can really train one's divine telekinesis. No wonder it can improve one's divine telekinesis so much. I wonder what other trials there will be. Squinting his eyes, Lin Yi stopped thinking about it and mobilized his divine telekinesis to block the attacks around him. 15 minutes later, as the last wave of piranhas was slapped away, the surrounding seawater turned into a rich divine telekinesis aura and surged into Lin Yi's body. The next moment, Lin Yi found himself in a room. Looking around, all he could see were stone walls. Silver-white light shone down from the sky, illuminating the entire space. Frowning, Lin Yi was about to fly up when he was surprised to find that this area was a no-fly zone. I can't fly. That means I can only fly in this room. What kind of trial is this time? After pondering for a while, Lin Yi focused and waited for the trial to come. Buzz, the divine telekinesis aura gathered, and a figure quietly appeared in front of Lin Yi. Looking up, the divine telekinesis aura formed a puppet. Its aura was turbulent, and its cultivation level was one level higher than Lin Yi's. Before Lin Yi could react, the puppet clenched one hand into a fist and the other into a palm and pounced on Lin Yi. Celestial Emperor Fist. Sky-destroying finger. Seeing the attack coming, Lin Yi instinctively raised his hand. The Celestial Emperor Fist and sky-destroying finger exploded, and the surging saint power swept past like a dragon's roar. Buzz. However, the frightening power and finger shadows passed through the puppet without causing any damage. Noticing this, Lin Yi raised his eyebrows and immediately realized what was going on. This was the divine will steal. The so-called trial was naturally for divine telekinesis, and saint power could not be used. Previously, Lin Yi was able to use the power of the divine glyph because the power of the divine glyph did not belong to this world. The divine will heavenly steel had never come into contact with it before. In addition, Lin Yi had fused the divine glyph with his divine will, so it did not detect it at first. This was why Lin Yi was able to use the divine glyph several times. However, as the power of the divine glyph was repeatedly used, the divine will heavenly steel noticed its abnormality and naturally suppressed it. Once he understood this, Lin Yi immediately withdrew his saint energy. As he retreated rapidly, he activated the elephant's divine skill. Roar! The surging divine sense gathered and suddenly turned into a huge tiger. It waved its sharp claws and pounced on the puppet. The gigantic tiger shone with a golden light that contained a sharp killing intent. The combination of the 5 spirits godly technique and the 10,000 godly technique was extremely powerful. Bang! The sharp claws struck the puppet's body and sent it flying. In the next moment, the giant tiger leaped up and opened its huge mouth. However, the puppet was not to be trifled with. It actually lowered its body, and in the instant it dodged the sharp tiger teeth, its right hand formed a fist and suddenly punched upwards. Roar! With one punch, the divine sense that had gathered into the giant tiger became much more illusory. Immediately after, before the giant tiger could swing its claws, the puppet's body spun and violently kicked the giant tiger's abdomen. Bang! As the puppet kicked out with its leg that was imbued with spirit sense, the giant spirit sense tiger was shattered. This is a killing technique. Lin Yi's eyes lit up and his breathing quickened. Although he had cultivated many martial arts and sword techniques to the peak, his killing techniques were not very strong. If this place could help him train his killing techniques, it would be a good thing. The corner of Lin Yi's mouth curled up. He dispersed the elephant's divine skill and only activated the 3,000 ways of heaven and God's attraction. At the same time, the puppet's right hand formed a palm and pushed horizontally towards Lin Yi's chest. Dang! Lin Yi's divine sense surged in his hands and immediately blocked the attack. However, the puppet's wrist turned and started to tremble. In the next moment, an endless stream of divine sense surged out and continuously hit Lin Yi's arms. Lin Yi suddenly felt a huge force coming towards him. He could not block it in time and was directly sent flying by the puppet. This is using the power of vibration to extend the power of one attack and attack multiple times. Although Lin Yi was sent flying, he was excited. He had a feeling that the puppet in this stage would bring him many surprises. However, the puppet did not give Lin Yi too much time to react. Once again, it rushed forward and continuously attacked Lin Yi. The puppet's cultivation level was originally one level higher than Lin Yi's. In addition, its killing techniques could be said to be superb. Lin Yi was actually at a disadvantage in the beginning. Fortunately, Lin Yi's true strength was more powerful. Although the puppet's cultivation level was one level higher than his, its strength was not as good as his and could not cause any specific damage to him. Lin Yi, on the other hand, used the puppet as a whetstone to hone his killing techniques. After half an hour, Lin Yi's killing techniques finally caught up to the puppets. They were not weaker than the puppets at all. However, he still could not fully master them. But by relying on his powerful strength, Lin Yi still managed to destroy the puppet with a single punch. Phew, this stage is about killing techniques. I wonder what the next stage will be. Touching his nose, Lin Yi was surprised to find that after the puppet was destroyed, there were no changes. Could it be that he had not passed this stage? The corner of Lin Yi's mouth twitched. He could not help but feel embarrassed. Buzz! Very quickly, the divine sense aura that was even stronger than before gathered and formed another puppet. However, this time, the puppet's cultivation level was 3 levels higher than Lin Yi's. Boom! As soon as the puppet appeared, it slid forward and violently punched Lin Yi in the face. Bang! The violent divine sense exploded and Lin Yi was immediately sent flying. He was stunned. This time, the puppet's strength was similar to his. Moreover, its speed, strength, and killing techniques were stronger than before. Without exception, Lin Yi was once again at a disadvantage. He could only improve his skills by taking a beating. This time, it took Lin Yi a full hour to hone his skills to the puppet's level. After another 15 minutes, the puppet was destroyed and turned into a sky full of divine sense aura. Like a river, it surged into Lin Yi's body. It's over. Slightly stunned, Lin Yi felt a little regretful. Although the puppet was very strong, it had also improved him greatly. Not to mention other things, just the killing techniques had benefited him greatly. The light flickered again. This time, the surrounding scene turned into a huge circular arena. Countless cages hung around, and inside each cage was a ferocious beast. Whether it was a wolf, a tiger, or a silver fox, they all stared at Lin Yi with a ferocious look. Their ferocious looks made Lin Yi tremble all over. Buzz! The aura of divine sense rippled, and a crisp sound rang out. The cages around all scattered, and the ferocious beasts inside fell out one after another. They were stunned at first, then immediately roared and quickly surrounded Lin Yi. Their sharp teeth flashed coldly, and their eyes were filled with cruelty and pride. In a chapter that you're tuning into the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.